I came out. Are we ready? Are we ready to start? Hi, how are you? you, me? Do you know what this is? I know what that word is.
Yay, I think it's Y.
Yay. Okay.
Sorry.
Yay. Okay, great. Okay. Okay. All right, everybody. I think we're ready to get started. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'd like to call to order this public roundtable. Today we're convening at the Anacostia Public Library in Ward 8, and I'm so glad to see so many of you in attendance in person today and who are watching online to talk about this incredibly important issue around gun violence. I want to welcome residents who are following along today's roundtable on YouTube at our channel at CM Brooke Pinto. I am Councilmember Brooke Pinto, and I am the Ward 2 council member and the chairwoman of the Committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety. We've gathered here today to hear from you, the residents of DC, about how gun violence is impacting your lives and what you want to see from your government in partnership with the community to address this crisis. Gun violence is not a theoretical problem. I hear from kids who tell me that they know the sounds of gun violence all too well. I've spoken to parents who share with me the fear they have every morning saying goodbye to their kids, not knowing if they'll come home. This is a problem that continues to traumatize our communities. And I know that so many of you, and I share it, are calling for solutions. We can never lose sight of what gun violence means in the lives of our community members and the trauma that it causes. Gun violence is not just a problem facing the district, it is an emergency. And like any emergency, there is no simple solution. What that means is we must continue to bring together experts, government agencies, and most importantly, the community to discuss and find remedies and real supports and healing that we need to see. Meetings like today's are crucial to understanding the problem and finding a solution. And I'm so grateful to everybody who's shown up to testify. I know these are not easy topics to talk about, especially publicly, but I really appreciate you sharing your stories and help being part of the process to bring about change that I know we all want to see. I also want to acknowledge that we're here in Ward 8 today, and I am not from Ward 8. I live in Ward 2, and I am very appreciative that you've welcomed me into your community. While every part of our city has been impacted by the scourge of gun violence, this crisis has been especially acute in areas east of the river for many years. And I know residents have been calling for more immediacy and support and action for years. And so many of you have been working on this issue for much longer than I have. And so I come to this conversation humbly and with gratitude that you are leaning in with me and allowing me to share this space with you. I also want to thank my Ward 8 colleague, Councilmember Trayon White, for his support and effort in this event. He will hopefully be joining us a little bit later today, and I know he looks forward to hearing from you all as well. Before we get started, I want to note that if you did not sign up for today's hearing in advance, you can still sign up by speaking with the committee staff in the landing just outside the meeting room. They are all either holding clipboards or wearing pink, so you can find them easily. I also want to share that this coming Monday is the third session of this roundtable, Monday, March 6th. We're going to be convening a discussion on gun violence prevention and reduction. And at that roundtable, the committee will hear directly from the district and federal agencies that play the most active role in our gun violence prevention and reduction work. This is not going to be a traditional hearing. It'll be a chance for all of these agencies to sit down at the same table all day to lean in and find solutions and identify opportunities for cooperation. Real work will be getting done at this meeting, and you can tune in to watch on our YouTube channel. That will also be taking place at 11 a.m. So thank you very much, and we're going to turn now to hearing from you. When I call your name, if you can please come forward and come join us at this table. We're going to be calling folks in groups of 3 at a time. Public witnesses will have 3 minutes to present your testimony. And if you're representing an organization, you will have 5 minutes to present your testimony. And Akima will be helping with the clock here so you can follow along as well. So our first 3 witnesses, we will hear from Dr. Wariz Majid from Yay Me Inc., Nini Tay from Harriet's Wildest Dreams, and Virginia Lee, public witness. Is Virginia Lee here? Okay, so we will also move to Jamila White from ANC 8A05. Not here yet? Okay. How about Johnny Alderman Howard from DC Forensic Peer Specialist? Great, come on up. Thank you, Doctor.
How you been? I can't complain.
It's because you're humble.
You supposed to.
Stay humble.
Dr. Wariz Majid, please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Councilman Pinto and all of Ward 8 and the entire city. My name is Dr. Majid, and I'm here to represent the voice of victims of gun violence and explain why we have no true perpetrators of gun violence. I want to mention a few names to you. Eric Weaver, chairman of NARC. Wally Johnson, founder of J&J Monitoring Solutions. India Blocker, founder of NDBs. Cousin Wayne, original founder of Yay Me, and Dr. Majid, custodian of the city. All of us combined with several others are products of investments made in the city in the late 90s and the early 2000s by organizations like the National Alliance of Change and the Peaceaholics. Unfortunately, for reasons we can't debate today, these investments seized and perpetrators, quote unquote, murderers of hundreds of our DC babies were raised. They were raised without the properly trained and funded men and women that would have provided them the blueprint to be successful residents of this great city. So today, DC, not just our council members, but the entire DC, we meaning over 85,000 returning citizens, 300 Pathways ambassadors, over 2,500 families that we serve every year, and 9 wards of underrepresented people. We ask you, do not hit the reset button on the cultivation of the next leaders of the District of Columbia. We have 3 options. 1, provide oversight for all VI and prevention programs to have a uniformed approach to training, funding, and program development. Number 2, classify the men, young and old, in this city that were failed by the systems we created: the healthcare system, the education system, the financial system, and the prison system, that have all failed the men of this city. We need to have a special classification similar to we have for the LGBTQ community, single mothers, and victims of the AIDS epidemic, so that these men may receive housing and other services to end the pandemic of fatherless communities. Number 3, we need to follow the strategic plan that was created for DC. We understand that no plan is flawless, and one murder is too many. But if we cannot evaluate a plan to see the impact from day 1 to year 20, and we don't have the courage to stay the course, we will be responsible for creating the next generation of lawless men and women. I thank you for the opportunity to be able to present, and I'm hoping that we can follow up these conversations.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you.
Rashid.
Kind of took my testimony.
Go ahead, Nini Tay from Harriet's Wildest Dreams.
Maurice kind of took my testimony. But my name is Nene Teller. I'm the co-conductor of Harriet's Wildest Dreams. We are a Black-led, women, non-binary abolitionist organization. And when we say abolitionist, we mean abolitionists. And it's been no judgment that we're abolitionists. And I stand firm that I'm an abolitionist. I'm also a DC native, born and raised right here east of the river, right here, in the Castile. I was born on Intercosteel Road. So that's how deep this is for me. So thank you for allowing, and thank you for coming over east of the river. I appreciate you. We are Black people. I'm not gonna repeat a lot of things he said, so, and I want y'all to know I'm gonna talk from the heart, because I live this, excuse my language, I live this. We are Black people, like so many others. Some of us are survivors of violence, have lost friends and family members to community violence, and have otherwise been impacted by community violence. Black on Black crime is a myth. Let me say that again. Black on Black crime is a myth. It's called intercommunity violence. We're here together. Black people live here. So who's gonna be the crime? We commit crime with each other. We don't say white on white crime, and crime happen all the time too, in War too. You don't say it's white on white crime going on. So we gotta lose that stigma first. Let's lose that stigma. People are awakened by violence on the blocks and phone calls from friends and neighbors when someone in our community has lost their life. I lost my nephew right here on Minnesota and Pennsylvania Avenue to gun violence. So don't tell me I don't care about gun violence as I try to find solutions that's alternatives to policing. I have family members that's police. So I want to be clear on that too. I don't hate the police. I dislike the system that was never built for Black people. So with that being said, I want to say there's an undeniable connection between community violence and police violence. Gun violence is gun violence. Police violence is gun violence. We have to be honest about how relying on the police to address violence facilitate the ongoing of criminalization, brutalization, and killing of Black people, and how relying on the police, demanding more police present, more aggressive police does not make us safer. It makes us feel safer. I give you all the prime example, and I want to put this on record. Harriet's Wildest Dreams, Trigger Project, Slide Zone, and other community members, organizations, we had a conversation on 18th Place because the gun violence had just occurred a couple of days before. We met with these youngins, over 20 youngins, standing out there trusting us to give us to tell us what they need and for us to try to pour into them. As we talked to them and asked for 5D, police, Trigger Project asked, y'all sit on the corner and keep us safer. As the police, 3 police cars sat on the corner, we, community members, were met with the gun recovery unit, and as they called gun recovery unit, I called it jump out, with the community, where they could have made me, someone trying to pour into my community, unsafe and get killed or hurt. And I want y'all to understand what that looked like. They had no reason to be there, but because an incident happened there, gun recovery unit came up there, and if we had not been there, they would have shook them young boys down. And this is where we go, where trust must be built back with the police. And not only did they make us unsafe, they lost trust with the young men that we were trying to build with. But because how I showed up and I used very bad language to the police, those people still trust me because I kept themselves safe as a community leader and pouring and giving resources to these youth and young people. And I explained to them what carjacking leads to because they don't understand. And that's the work that we do. We let them know just because you're in that car, don't think you're not gonna go to jail, right? So I want y'all to understand that police violence is actually violence too, right? What we need, I'm not gonna touch on him, accountability, right? That's a trending word. Let's switch that language to responsibility. And I gotta go fast, I got 48 seconds. We have the responsibility to keep people safe. Solutions, identify reasonable expectations. You can be expectations that you can be responsible for these programs and must work in concert and have the necessary funding, staffing legislation authority, and support from the district leadership to effectively carry out their mandates. These violence interrupters, give them the resources. I don't want to be called after they help somebody and they don't have the resources to continue to help. I don't want to be the one to have to move a family. And this is what's happening. It's like they can save them, but they don't have the resource, the continuation. What's the next steps? I don't want the violence interrupters to have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. I want people that's going to be responsible, and let's literally keep people safe, right? And let's build this. Whereas I'm doing, you all, I'm actually starting a DC Safety Squad where we just don't stand there. We do something. We respond to our people. We come together as a community. And this is the world I'm building. And I can give any of you all who want to get involved with it. It's called the DC Safety Squad. We're the coalition where we respond. And I'm training people to be mental health responders. And they help our neighbor that's having a mental crisis. They've been trained as coming out when we get somebody shot. I'm able to wrap that person up till the ambulance come, not the police, because they criminalize and we continue this. You understand? So I want you to understand that I'm not against the police. I'm about us building community and keeping each other safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from Johnny Alderman Howard from DC Forensic Peer Specialist.
Good morning. I'd like to thank the council member for having this hearing and all you that came. My purpose here today is to advance my purpose here today is to advance the community-based solution for justice and involve people with mental health and addiction. Currently, the model that I'm coming out of is the sequential intercept model, which is an evidence-based program which will allow DC to interact with those that are in the federal penitentiaries right now. You have to have an evidence-based program to go back in. Forensic Peer Specialist is an evidence-based program. I'm proof of it because I'm sitting here with you. It's Forensic Peer Specialist. Let me explain to you what that is. It's those who have mental health and addiction who have overcame and are willing to help those just as they self peer to peer. All the work that's being done, I thank everybody for everything, every part that's put in. My concern is for those that's coming out of penitentiaries. We're trying to engage them before they come out, help in their redevelopment with open avenue to success, meaning they dictate their success. Forensic, if you ask me, what does forensic peer specialist mean? It means three things: recidivism, wellness, and public safety. By the grace of God, I have not been involved with the criminal justice system 13 to 14 years now. And that's by the grace of God. The same stigma or the same willpower that God has provided for me, He has provided for them also. And they are people. They are our brothers and sisters, our cousins, our uncles, our fathers that need help also. Their job, once they come out, is to stand for public safety. We are asking the council members to seriously consider, first of all, for funding the Step It Up initiative, which would allow peer support specialists to receive money for jobs. We are asking the council to implement the Second Chance Act here totally in DC, which will free up a lot of funds that can be used for the redevelopment of those that's in prison before they come out. There's like $1 million, $7 million for housing before they come out. Of course, they must be assessed. Of course, you must have data driven, which American University is willing to collect our data. We're not just saying that we're doing something, it's recorded. All I can say right now, currently, we are at the zero model, the intercept zero. And the solution for that is crisis teams, respite units. There's no place for nobody to go get a rest from mental illness. There are a couple. Some has one and there's one uptown. But besides that, as a whole of DC, the government taking on the responsibility, no. We're asking for that to change, and that we can get legislation from the mayor for Second Chance Act, which it can make a difference. And I just humbly sit here asking to work with anybody in the solutions. I'm about solutions, and that's why I'm here. I'm open. We just need a chance. We need to get on the books, just as restored justice, violent interrupter are on the books. Forensic peer specialists need to be on the books to be able to be of help to everyone, to be the wraparound service, which no one has a 24 wraparound service of all the work that's being done by the community. Just asking for a chance to help us help ourselves. That's all. I thank you for your time. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Howard. Thank you all. And I am going to have a couple of questions for you in a moment, but I do want to acknowledge and welcome our Ward 3 Council Member, Matthew Fruman. And please, if you'd like to say hello.
Thank you. Is this working? Wonderful. So I am so grateful to you, Chairman Pinto, for organizing this hearing and organizing it here on site at the Anacostia Library. I'm here to listen. I think that it's our job on the council to hear from folks who are most affected by these problems and hear about how we can help you help to solve these issues that are so important for this community and all the communities around the city. So I'm grateful for this opportunity and looking forward to hearing from people through the course of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Fruman, and thank you for being here. And I also do want to acknowledge there's staff here from our Attorney General, Brian Schwab's office, as well as our Ward 7 colleague, Councilmember Vincent Gray's office, and our Ward 4 colleague, Councilmember Janice Lewis George's office as well. You can wave at me if I've missed somebody. Oh,
Wanda.
there you are. Sorry, Wanda. And from our Ward 8 colleague, Councilmember Treyon White's office. Thank you very much. So, Dr. Majid, I want to start with you and this idea of needing a uniform approach to violence interruption, because one of the things that we also hear from some of our VI workers is that there needs to be a direct relationship and understanding of what each neighborhood needs. And so how do you think we reconcile the need to not have a kind of one size fits all approach in those relationships that are being built, but also making sure that there's standardization to funding and support for our great VI programs?
So one way that we could One way that we could start with that is I've been blessed to be around almost every VI program that the city has, from the Cure Violence model to the Ones approach to even some of the other kind of side off type of programs as well. If you look at each program, start with like a Cure. They have certain things they do very, very well. Ones has certain things they do very, very well. Cure may have more of a concentrated approach, more people in one community. Ones may have more of the government support for some of the wraparound services. So we need to look at what works in these programs and combine them. But if I'm doing VI work in a certain part of town, you're doing VI work in a certain part of town, you're getting paid different than I'm getting paid. The trainings that you're getting are different. Nothing is uniform. When an issue happens in our community and we say, hey, we need to have better trained individuals, or we need to know why this individual does not know how to respond in a certain type of way, it's because we have too many cooks in the kitchen, right? We need to find a way to streamline everything. And I've seen different models, but I believe DC, we have our own model. We should have our own czar who's responsible for saying that every organization will have some type of uniform training, uniform funding, right? And also uniform development of these organizations. Because these small organizations, like a YAME or any of the other smaller organizations that's represented in here, there are times that we don't have the proper guidance to be able to compete and maintain and sustain what we've done. But we are doing the work and we have some of the greatest impact in the community, right? So we have to have a uniformed approach to gun violence. We have to.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful. And Ms. Taylor, you talked about what sounds like a very traumatizing experience in working with neighbors and members of the community and then having the police come. Can you talk about why that interaction kind of undermined some of the work that you were in the middle of doing, that you were hoping would lead to more success and more trust?
I honestly want to say, and I know this, and as I do this work, it's hard because being born and raised, and like I just told y'all, I lost my nephew here to gun violence. So when I do this work and I'm talking about, I don't need more police, I need holistic and funding for people to actually be able to do it, like the program we do and the program that the violence interrupters do, and me being on the DC Safety Squad, because the police job is to protect property, and what it's built on is to actually criminalize people. And so what y'all fail to realize as we do this, when they show up to places, is to criminalize, and that's not what rehabilitation looks like. And then we get them in the system, and we got like the RCCA that we're doing now, and the person come out, and we never was able to help them before they had to go back in because they didn't have the resources to help them. It's a revolving door. So to have the police show up to be like, we need more police to get the guns off the street. You take the gun off that street, it's gonna be another gun on the street. That you can't police your way out of gun violence. And this is what I'm saying. The same way they try to show up and try to prevent what they probably think of retaliation from these young men because of gun violence had just occurred a couple of days ago, you almost got community members killed because you're not communicating with each other. You literally showed up and you had people, ordinary community members, that's trying to pour into them and see what they need and listen instead of arrest, go over there and say, give me your gun. And this is what the gun recovery unit is doing, showing up just reckless, and you all keep fighting for that. And you can't police your way out of it. So what I want to say, I would have never put the police on the block. But Trigger Project put police on the block to keep us safe. It was 3 police on that block, and we still could have got shot. Be clear and understand that. So I don't care how many policemen y'all want. Police don't keep you safe. It make you feel safer. You need resources and programs like this to get a hold of that problem and solve it. Is it going to happen tomorrow? No. But if we save one person, our work is not in vain.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Howard, I'm interested in this idea of, I think you said rest center?
Respite center.
Respite center. Can you elaborate a little bit on how you think that should look different than the model that we have?
Respite center will, first of all, will respond to the first responder, the police, the hospitals, the fire department. They have a place that they will have a place to bring a person that's willing to come to get a rest. Once they are there, we deal with their needs. In the city, you have two. Sums has one, and it's one organization uptown that has one. But in general, the police, the fire department, any one of the groups has no place to take nobody to for a rest. And sometimes you just need a rest to get yourself together. And it's important for their wellness. And once we encounter them, we can help them with their needs. I think, it's important. It can be funded by SAMHSA, no problem. SAMHSA will fund the respite center, and whoever trying to work with me to bring the better for all. That's what I'm trying. I didn't want no 510C. I want to work for the all, for the whole DC. That's why I'm here. And can I say one more thing?
Sure.
I heard the mayor say, bless her soul, she's our mayor. But she said that we got a gun violence problem. We don't have a gun violence problem. We have a people problem. No gun has ever been to court and get charged. Yes, the gun be used to commit this, but make no mistake about it. It's because of my mentality that in the past, I did what I did to hurt, harm the community. I don't want to do that no more. I want to be of help. Thank you. Investing in people is a little better to invest in a young man, young lady, than lock them up. Just, gun the police, because the police need to be taught how to wound. The police are trained to kill. I am clear on this. They do their job, what we train them to do, to stand there with that gun. The targeting practice is from here up. But everybody all law enforcement need to be trained to wound. Thank you, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. It's really powerful. Councilmember Fruman?
Thank you very much. I guess I have one small question. And when you talk about a respite center uptown, is it Woodley House that you're referring to?
No, it's up off of Wisconsin, Connecticut Avenue. The organization, I can't think of the organization right now, but it's really only two. The district does not have one.
Right, it's private.
For the whole. With the mental health and addiction that we are facing here in the city, is very much needed in all wards.
PIW.
Well, okay, with that's not the one I was talking. PIW, when you go to PIW, you get treated physically 7 days and you are released. They have no place to send no one. There is no connection with treatment. There is no connection with arrest to personally help someone get their self together. And
And can I just say one thing when you say that? Because Hers Riders Dreams is on the DCRIM Poverty Coalition. And this is what we actually trying to get legislation, the council to bring the law. A harm reduction center is what he's asking for. And this is what we are fighting for right now, harm reduction centers in DC, so that we can actually get people treated and heal what he's saying. So that's what you need. We don't need more police. We need harm reduction centers.
So I hear you on that. And Woodley House is a different institution that that is doing good work, but the idea that we need to do more in this space, and the idea that everyone on the panel has been expressing, which is that it's people with shared experiences who are best positioned to help other people coming up. That's a very powerful message. One thing, and I fear that this is too broad of a question and we'll use too much time, and the chair will tell me not to do it the next time. But I hear you talking about the relationship with the police and what a challenge that is. And I'm wondering whether you have specific suggestions of the kinds of things that we should be encouraging the police to do to help change that relationship so there's more of a sense of partnership and less of a sense of antagonism. Are there any ideas of things that we could be thinking about?
We both can take it. If you all, when Chief Conti, and I want y'all to know that I sit at every table before I do my fight. I sit at your table. I actually got a meeting going to get a meeting with you too, because now you're the new police public safety. When they sell and scare tactic our communities and make them think that the way they showing up and like it's no way around it, because you are literally, the way that the police set up right now and the way y'all trying to get more policemen is you are literally trying to arrest your way out of gun violence. And you can't, a gun can't get arrested. So therefore, I don't even know what the solution can be to like solve this with the police, because the only thing you're doing is arresting an individual that had a gun. And until you get into the point where how are the guns coming into our communities, that's when you can solve gun violence. But just keep going to this corner, arresting this guy, or arresting this guy, that's not going to stop the next person. When we leave out here, I can assure you, I'm not even gonna be surprised if somebody got shot. That's not going to surprise me, because you're not getting to the root of the problem. You're trying to police your way out of it. And so therefore, I don't even know the connection. And I'm just saying this because, and I know the police not going nowhere no time soon, but I'm an abolitionist. And I was raised in a community where I had 4 mothers, even though I had 1 mother. But each 3 mothers, I dared not to do nothing. And I was in the projects, because they kept me safe, not the police. I did a community officer friendly, the band. I danced with them. They didn't arrest me. They were community.
Well, that's
So
what
y'all got them as like the police, the real enslaved patrol. That's what MPD is today, enslaved patrol.
That's what I was getting at when you said that you had officer friendly and they were part of the community. How do we get to something like that?
It's a requirement. It's a requirement on you all's end. Community, the difference, the problem that we have, and I was just talking to the sister earlier, is somewhere around the line, the government became the creator of things and then community became the supporter. To flip that around the way that things are supposed to be, the community, we are the creators. We should be giving the demands and saying exactly what we want in our community, and then government supports it. The same thing with police. Until we require that the police are a part of the community, meaning they reflect the community. That's the difference right there. So when a police officer, these young brothers and sisters can see these police officers that look like them, that understand what they're going through. You have a chief at the top. He is a reflection of DC school system. He's had family members that have been impacted by gun violence. The answer is right in front of your face. What we have to do is we have to make sure that other individuals who are hired with DC money to service DC need to come from DC, because then you're invested in your community. Because it's very easy for me to devalue someone who is not related to me, who I do not understand, don't understand how they think, don't understand what it means to have something off, or what it means to have somebody to be a victim. So we have a community that is policed by individuals who are not a part of that community. You have to think about what that looks like. It's almost like a foreign entity coming in and telling you how to live your life. That's a recipe for disaster.
So I so appreciate that response, and I'm going to stop, but I do want to say, what you were saying. We're not going to arrest our way to safety. A thing that I've been saying from the first day that I started to campaign for the council is we're never going to incarcerate our way to safety. That while we have thousands of people who don't feel like they don't have any hope, nobody's going to be safe. And we need to address root cause issues We also need to address this relationship between the police and the community so that it's healthier than it is today. Question is, how do you do it? And that's a thing that I'm sure the chairman and I would be grappling with.
Thank you so much, Councilmember. Thank you all. Really appreciate you being here. We are going to call our next panel. We will have Jamila White from ANC 8A05, Pranav Nanda, Public Witness, and Letitia Atkins, Pennsylvania Avenue, East Main Street. Okay, first we will have Jamila White, ANC 8A05.
I was trying to let the community go first and then I kind of go last, but good afternoon, everyone. Happy Intersectional Women's Month, celebrating Black and women, brown women, indigenous women, and women around the world. Welcome to Anacostia, y'all. Welcome to Chocolate City. Welcome to the home of the free, the land of the brave. I want to pour some of that energy and love from our ancestors into us, because what we're talking about is pretty dark, and what we're talking about is very much racialized. So I prepared some talking points, and so I'm gonna try to speed through them as I want to continue and build off what the last panel said by really focusing on root problems and addressing those root problems. And I let our queen ancestor, Coretta Scott King, influence the words that are going to come out of my mouth today. And many of these are the words that she spoke in Chocolate City more than 60 years ago, when she was here 2 months after her husband was killed to fight for racial justice and economic justice. All of the problems we face in trying to build a community and a nation of brotherhood can be attributed to what Queen Ancestor Coretta Scott King called the triple evils of our time: racism, poverty, and war, which we say is a military state. All three of these evils can be reduced to one word: violence. We can therefore say that violence is a disease that threatens to destroy the basic fabric of which our society was founded on, undergirding the fabric of love, justice, understanding, and peace. Racism means being deprived of human dignity, self-respect, and equal opportunities for self-determination. Poverty produces the most deadly type of violence, and in this district, violence against poor people, Black people, brown people is systemic and routine. Queen Coretta reminds us that starving a child is violence, suppressing our culture is violence, neglecting children, school children is violence, punishing a mother and her child is violence, discrimination against the working man is violence, ghetto housing is violence, ignoring the medical needs of a community is violence, and the contempt and the willpower and to not change this is a sick and sinister form of violence. In one of the richest cities in the world, founded on the principles of justice and equality, Black and brown communities are denied access to the wealth that surrounds us. We live in a tale of two cities, with wealth and power concentrated on one side of the river, and poverty and trauma concentrated on another side of the river. In the nation's capital, one of the richest cities in the world, I'm not talking about the US, but the world, white families have 81% times the wealth of Black families. White people make 2 to 3 times those of Black people. In Ward 8, our average income is $38,000. For white DC, the average income is $144,000. I come from this community, and when I went to grad school in Indiana, I went to undergraduate at Hampton, so many people that I went to school would flock to DC for 6-figure jobs that my neighbors and families and friends could never even dream of achieving. People come here for the wealth and opportunities that are denied Black native Washingtonians. When you cross the river, 20 years of your life is lost because our life expectancy is 20 years less than west of the river in Ward 3 and 2. And these outcomes are not a result of moral failures of Black people. They are very much policy failures that have come from intentional disinvestment into DC's Black communities and Black people. Violence is very much racialized in this city. And though everyone has secondary impacts, the primary impacts are very much different. The CDC has declared that poverty is the greatest threat to public safety. And they have also shown us how poverty changes your genes and how we know that genes is DNA. That's trauma in our DNA. It's being changed and it's being passed down, because what do we pass down to our children is our DNA. So poverty changes your genes, trauma changes your genes, and it's being passed down while other communities are having the opportunity to pass down wealth and prosperity. And so we talk about, how did we get here? How did we get here? When we know how did we get here? And I started to wonder in some of these meetings that I'm tired of going to, does DC have white youth? I asked myself that question, does DC have white youth? So I looked up to see the differences in experiences and outcomes for DC's white youth. And I was surprised that the population of white youth is almost equal to the population of Black youth. It's not huge differences. But then what I also found is that only 1% of white children live in poverty in the city. There's no concentration of white poverty in DC. When you look at school suspensions, 82% of those are Black students, 13% are are Latino students, and 0% are white students. 0% of white students are expelled from DC schools. So when we talk about policy failures and you have a budget that's $19 billion that's in excess, that's going to cut funding from DC's east of the river schools, you ask yourself, what are the long-term results of the actions that we take right now? I looked at some other statistics. How many white children are living in concentrated poverty? The wealth rates. Do you know that only 2% of white students even apply for the summer youth programs because their families have the resources and they don't need it? We are pushed programs in parks. They are pushed prosperity, college, opportunities, wealth, venture capitalism, the entire fucking world. And all we can sit here and say, you want another park? I don't just want the park. I want the opportunity for us to own the park and determine what's going to happen at the park. We talk about shared power and shared resources. We are in abundance. We don't have no resource problem. We have a racism problem. I think I'm over time.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. It was really powerful. Appreciate it. Next, we'll hear from Pranav Nanda, Public Witness.
Good morning, Chairperson Pinto, Councilmember Fruman, and community members. Let me start by saying I'm honored to follow so many powerful speakers. My name is Pranav Nanda. I first got involved in gun violence prevention following the loss of 4 of my students to gun violence. I am here to honor their lives and make sure no more young people have to live in the fear of violence of any kind. While violent crime overall has continued to decrease in DC over the past 2 decades, gun violence specifically has increased over the past 5 years, especially in 2020 and 2021. And while both homicides and violent crime with guns decreased in 2022, we know that the levels of gun violence in our community is absolutely unacceptable. So what does this data tell us? It tells us when individuals and communities are in crisis, gun violence rises. That's why we must focus on 4 things. We must address the rising levels of social and economic instability that increase the likelihood of gun violence. We must ensure everyone in our community has access to safe and secure housing, healthy and nutritious food, physical, mental, and emotional health care, and opportunities in education, recreation, and employment. We need to make sure everyone in our community, especially those at most risk of being involved with gun violence, not only have what they need to survive, but to thrive. We must counteract the generations of disinvestment in certain communities, specifically the Black community in DC, that has led to deepening inequities across DC. This means we must make those investments in a sustained way and at a scale needed to address the impact of years of actively choosing not to. The system is not broken. It's working like it was designed to. And as my fellow speaker just said, these are policy decisions. We must ensure that we are making other policy decisions that ensures that the resources and supports are in the neighborhoods that need it most. No one should have to travel across the city to go to a grocery store, to receive medical treatment, or to attend school and have a safe place to play. We must ensure that all of these resources that exist in certain communities in DC exist in all communities in all neighborhoods. 3, we must help people heal from the immense amount of trauma and grief. We are currently facing unprecedented levels of trauma in our community. While how the trauma manifests itself might vary, one thing is clear: people are hurting. We must invest in trauma-informed systems of care to help people heal. And we must invest in restorative practices and systems to help the community heal as a whole. Finally, we must end our reliance on the racist and harmful carceral system, which has continued to perpetuate cycles of harm and violence in DC. For far too long, we've tried to address community violence with systems of state violence, such as more police, more incarceration, and harsher sentencing. We know that these systems perpetuate cycles of harm. They don't stop them, they don't prevent them, and they don't end them. We must end our reliance in these systems, take steps to address the harm and trauma caused by those systems, and shift our focus to prevention, intervention, rehabilitation, and transformation. Of course, none of what I've testified about today is new or revolutionary. Community leaders and members have been saying these for years, for decades, for generations. However, I repeat them today as I truly believe focusing on these things will lead to transformative change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nanda. Next, we will hear from Letitia Atkins, Pennsylvania Avenue, East Main Street.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Pinto and Councilmember Fruman. Also, good afternoon, my fellow residents of East of the River. My name is Letitia Atkins, and I am the director of the Pennsylvania Avenue East Main Street. We are a program within the Marshall Heights Community Development Organization located in Ward 7. Today, I am here to discuss the impact of gun violence on the businesses located along the Pennsylvania Avenue East Main Street corridor. So I'm taking a different spin on the impact of gun violence. The mission of the Pennsylvania Avenue East Main Street program is to revitalize retail, retain and attract a diverse customer base, empower surrounding communities, and develop businesses along the Pennsylvania Avenue East Main Street corridor. PIMS serves as an advocate for these businesses while providing valuable information, resources, and technical assistance to enhance their economic vitality. Funding provided through the district's Department of Small and Local Business Development provides an opportunity to invest in a DC business corridor that has struggled through hardship and attempted to reinvent itself many times over the years. This funding has been integral to the survival of many of the corridor's small businesses. Pennsylvania Avenue is a highly accessible and affordable commercial corridor with high levels of vehicle traffic, modest rental rates, and multiple shopping centers with on-site parking. However, concerns such as gun violence, crime, pedestrian safety, and poor transportation infrastructure pose a significant threat to the success of the corridor. The businesses, particularly those located in the lower node, which are located along the 2300 block of Pennsylvania Avenue Southeast, have seen the highest prevalence of gun violence. The intersection of Pennsylvania Avenue Southeast and Minnesota Avenue Southeast is a particularly busy node, averaging approximately 51,000 vehicles per day, and it is a major bus transfer point for WMATA. There are currently 15 businesses located in the lower node, including one child care center, the US Post Office, and one sit-down restaurant. There is also an open-air drug market in close proximity. And as you can imagine, this has been the source of much of the crime and gun violence in the 2300 block of Pennsylvania Avenue Southeast. In that block alone, there have been numerous shootings, many of which are youth involved. Unfortunately, the community's plea for an adequate response has seemed to fall on deaf ears. As a community, we want the Pennsylvania Avenue East Main Street corridor to be a thriving place where businesses are able to flourish in an environment free of crime. Immediately, we are seeking the district to convene a meeting of stakeholders to discuss a comprehensive approach to improving the outcomes of the corridor. We cannot have quality retail along the corridor if these businesses are not allowed to thrive and succeed. And we do believe that without having the quality retail, without having the businesses to thrive and succeed because of some of the crime and the elements that are happening in that lower node, we want to attract some of the businesses that the community wants to see. And so we believe that this group of stakeholders should include not only law enforcement, but the ANC 7B chairperson, the SMD commissioner for the area, Ward 7 council member or his designee, myself, the Pennsylvania Avenue Main Street director, owners of the properties in the 2300 block of the Pennsylvania Avenue, representatives from WMATA, DMPED, the Office of Planning, the mayor's office, and the commander of the 6th district of MPD, along with any other concerned citizens, invested concerned citizens. Immediately, we're asking for 24-hour monitoring by law enforcement of the 2300 block of Pennsylvania Avenue Southeast for the next 45 days in an effort to quell the illegal activity in the corridor. This is coming from MPD. They are asking for rapid deployment of officers to include no less than 4 full-time officers along this location. But we are also suggesting that MPD enlist the assistance of WMATA Police, the U.S. Postal Service Police, along with the U.S. Park Police, because all of these agencies have a vested interest in that lower node of the corridor. So in closing, Councilwoman, Chairwoman Pinto, I want to thank you, Mayor Bowser, and the Council of the District of Columbia for your faith in our organization and our ability to make a difference along the Pennsylvania Avenue East corridor. DSLBD Director Christy Whitfield and her team are incredibly supportive and work diligently to ensure that we are helping small businesses along the corridor. The city's continued investment will allow this vision to come to fruition. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have, and definitely we consider ourselves to be a resource to you, the district, as well as the citizens of the Ward 7 in the District of Columbia. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for your testimony. Really powerful ideas shared, and we can kind of see even just from this panel where some of the tensions come from, with immediate calls for action and calls for long-term kind of investments and taking a more holistic approach. Commissioner, I wanted to ask you, you talked about this powerful image of disparity around parks and saying, I'm paraphrasing, but something along the lines of, we don't need necessarily just more programs or a park. We want the same access. Where do you think white policymakers west of the river get this wrong in thinking about investments or programs? Where are they and where are we missing the mark?
I think one of the areas that are missing the mark is coming from top down. It's coming from helicopter kind of savior view and not listening to the community that has the solutions and has been saying for more than 70 years, this is what is needed. I think one of the problems is we kind of look at issues of like, oh, this is the poor Black community, these little things are gonna solve these problems, and we haven't done the work internally to see where our own biases are and to see what's holding us up internally to be able to be in solidarity with these communities, because that's going to require radical changes that some of your more wealthy or powerful constituents may not want to happen. DC has one of the most inequitable tax structures, when we look at percentages of taxes being paid. And so when I talk about some of these solutions, it's going to be understanding that the privileges for some people have been at the oppression of other people. And the privilege is meant to be that it's normal. You don't know it's a privilege because it's made for you. And so centering community, centering voices puts that there. One of the things you could empower ANCs. What is great weight? What does that even mean? What does organizations have to respond to? There is no real shared power with the community. You could start by empowering community organizations not to just have a seat at the table, but be in that table, have decision-making that is equitable. I'm not talking about equality, I'm talking about equity. So that means we need more because we've been deprived of it. And we can just sit here and look at Good Hope Road. I want to follow up what this sister said about business opportunities. We know that Black wealth is also created through Black businesses. There's a one-sided approach being looked at Black wealth right now by just pushing home ownership. I'm not critiquing that, but majority of Black wealth comes from home ownership, while majority of white wealth does not, because you do not realize that wealth until you sell or until you take equity from that. We're not looking at how to build Black communities that are sustainable, that are prepared for the next generation, that are going to put us even into the economy. We are living in a social services, nonprofit industrial complex economy. Anacostia has the largest concentration of Black businesses in the district, but they don't have the same investments that downtown DC is getting when they're looking at investments. At the same time, the same business district is home to the largest open air drug market in the, one of the largest open air drug markets in the district. That same business district also has 7 nonprofits that are run by people who do not come from this community. Most of them don't look like this community, who are running 7 substance use and mental health centers, but yet they do no outreach or very little outreach to the huge amounts, hundreds of people that are on Good Hope Road every day. So what do you expect? But that's our taxpayer dollars going there. And they're like, oh, we work on a referral system. The district doesn't give us money for outreach. You have this that is happening right here on Good Hope Road, soon to be Marionberry Road. You know, how could this continue? We have been demanding Councilmember White's office for the entire time he's been in office and before to relocate the BHG methadone clinic that is run by people out of Delaware. I will get into the management of them later, to a medical campus, because guess what? The other dosing clinics uptown and other communities are on medical clinics where patients have the access to dignity and the other wraparound resources that they need. You come out here at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's a disgrace. It's a human rights disgrace to see how we allow people who need these services to be treated. We have asked for the city to help that clinic be moved to UMC's campus, and to also look at a provider that is community and holistic. None of our major programs are being run by folks from this community. Everything is top down, saviorism, come in. When are the resources that are taken from our tax dollars, the labor, the blood of our ancestors, and our rights being violated, thank you, sister, to come back to us? So white people can use their power and privilege to help change things. And I want to say, I'm talking about systems of racism. You do not have to be white to participate and uphold systems of racism. It is a system. It is a system. It's not a person. It's not an act. It is a system that results in these racialized disparities. And Black people, I don't care whatever your class income, we see the disparities throughout, because white women have higher mortality, whatever, they survive pregnancy, white women with no education, than Black women with PhDs. Serena Williams almost died in childbirth, and the only reason she didn't, she had a white rich husband that was able to step in. It is not a class issue, it is a race issue, and it's one that needs to be addressed. We don't have conversations about race in this city. DC is one of the most segregated cities in the entire country. DC is one of the most wealthiest cities in the entire country, and DC has some of the highest racial disparities in the entire country. This is the nation's capital. If we don't do it here, where else in America will it be done? We set an example. If it cannot be done in a Black majority here, where else can it be done? Power has to be given to the communities that have been neglected, and that's us. Even these conversations, are you going into the tenant associations? Are you going onto the block? Are you meeting people's needs? I don't know how many meetings I've been in with people who are on the block who are looking for alternative resources. And it's like, well, I never had health care. I need to go to the doctor. I need to get an apartment. I need food to bring home to my children and my children's mother. And it's like, okay, yeah. Did you talk to Bread for the City? No. What? Like, this is the type of conversations that are being had. Right now, there is a major issue that Ms. Wanda, we've been working on for 2 years, and we know if something does not happen, it's gonna result in more violence. And then it's gonna be another goddamn press conference. Oh, the community has to take up this role. What do you do? Like, I can't even. They know what the issues are. People are told, they are warned, we're given solutions, and we are ignored. So if you don't know how to do it, you should just get out the way. You can retire, you can resign, you can go work somewhere else, do whatever you need to do.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Councilmember Fruman?
I'm with you too. People don't like to hear this shit, but it's the truth. Racism has internalized oppression onto Black people. It has changed the way in which we interact and see each other as less than. We are not less than. No. We deserve every single right to access as a Ward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 voter household and anybody in this country.
And we gonna get it.
We can take it by choice or by force. Decide where you at. I would tell you, because no liberation has always come from the oppressed. The oppressor has never given liberation. Abolition ended because of Black people and the fight for our freedom. So don't ever let anybody let you believe that liberation will be given to you. We will take it as we always have.
That's right, guys. That's right, sure.
So, I mean, that was very, very powerful.
That's powerful. What you gonna
And
do?
yeah, so I mean, I guess I feel like asking questions after that. Like you said your piece, Commissioner, and I will acknowledge that it's hard to hear, but really, really important to hear. And so again, and we need to take all of it to heart. So I'm grateful to the chairman for organizing this, and I'm the whole panel. You know, all of the testimony really important. But Commissioner, I think it really, really important for you to have come out and said what you had to say as clearly as you've said it today. So thank you very much.
Thank you all so much. Thank you. All right. We will now hear from Robert Vincent Branham from DC for a Safer DC. You hear, Mr. Branham? Sharice Muhammad, public witness. Stuart Anderson, family and friends of incarcerated people. Amanda Beal, ANC 8C08. All right, we will get started with Sharice Muhammad, public witness.
Excuse me. Is it still, it's afternoon now. So good afternoon, Chairperson Pinto, Council Member Fruman, and to the community. Thank you so very much for the convening of this roundtable on gun violence and public safety. My name is Sharice Muhammad. I'm a former ANC Commissioner in Ward 7, so we're your neighbors in the next ward. Also former LSAT Chair for McKinley Technology High School. I'm coming as a parent. My daughter is a sophomore at Winston-Salem State University and graduate of McKinley Technology High School. I'm here to testify on two fronts. Number one, I'd like to see better coordination on intervention because our offenders, carjackings and crime in the city are getting younger and younger. And I'd also like to talk about the impacts of the public safety with regards to the outer context, which is nationwide. The public safety issue is affecting the politics on all of the country, all of the states in the country. So let me begin by saying I'm calling for, number one, as a parent, when I was part of the parent advisory board with Chancellor Fairby, the first thing I asked for was an audit of DCPS Central. That was in 2019, and I'm still asking for an audit of the DC Public Schools Central Administration, because there's a lot of educational funding. And although I don't necessarily begrudge DCPS Central for the money that it's receiving, we still don't really see pathways of how that money is being spent. And I'm also looking at the lack of coordination with the services that our young people are or not getting, and that's arguable. We're also looking at better, I'm asking, as a parent who's still very active with the PTO at McKinley Technology High School, as well as the Parent Association with Duke Ellington School of the Arts, my alma mater. So my footprint with DCPS is very strong and longstanding. So what I'd like to see is better coordination between DCPS and the different nonprofit organizations that are successful. I'm working with a number of organizations throughout Ward 7, Ward 5, Ward 8, and I'd like to see how we can help to intervene with our young people. So much has been said prior to our segment of the panel, and I think for the most part, we're not going to arrest. However, I'd like to also highlight the community policing. I think one of the things that one of my neighbors had brought up to me, even though I'm not ANC anymore, I still get the requests and I still get the phone calls and I still get the emails and the late night calls, but I do intend to continue to serve the community of people that I was elected to serve. So I still continue to serve. One of the things that was mentioned is the fact that the cadets, where are our cadets coming from? Where are the police coming from? The police are not germane to the District of Columbia. Their view of us is animalistic. So therefore, their service is somewhat of that, of what we continue to see. So I'd like to say in part, I'm also an alum of Marion Barry Youth Leadership Institute. I'd like to see funding, more funding come to that organization because it has proven itself. I would also like to lastly add that as alum, we have a board of directors and a very active alumni association where we continue to fundraise to send students to college, provide scholarships, but we also want to work with the mayor to make it more robust and bring it back to what it once was. The SYEP program is not at its best. It has fallen. And we know what it has done for us as professionals now who continue to serve and give back. And we want to see our young people invested in civic engagement, political awareness, but more importantly, finance, economic stability so that they can become productive members of our community. So I want to say that. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify. And I'm willing and able to take questions at the end.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mohammed. Next, we have Stuart Anderson, Family and Friends of Incarcerated People.
Again, I'd like to say thank you for holding this public hearing. It is important that we bring these types of hearings into the community. And I'm Stuart Anderson. I'm a native Washingtonian, and I won't say all of what I said previously in testifying. I am involved in a lot of organizations. I'm happy to learn, man. I got an alumnus, McKinley Tech, Duke Ellington, and speaking of Duke Ellington, right, I'd like to see the council look at Duke Ellington really closely and figure out how we fund Duke Ellington, how we keep it in existence, because as a product of Duke Ellington, I know the value of that art school. I have a handful of placards with me. I didn't bring these because I really didn't even intend to testify again today about the major issue that we are having in our community. Synergism. Maurice talked about that, and a whole bunch of other people who have testified before me, both yesterday and today, and historically, about how to address the trauma that our families and our children are facing we need synergism. We need everybody working together. We need the government working with the grassroots organizations. We need to be supporting the businesses because we need employment. No, one of the most important things a lot of people don't know, and it's not even really important, but about 5 years ago, we had a grocery walk right here in Ward 8. We had a grocery walk because we all agreed. Every council member picked up a cart, walked with us from the Giant to 2500, which formerly was the office of the Black United Front. So the United Black Front. Thank you, Ambrose. Sometimes, you know, I get so upset about this stuff, and I'm trying very hard not to use the language that I don't want our children to use about some of the mess that we're dealing with, right? The number one thing is this. If a child is not eating properly, too many of our children go home hungry. That makes you angry. We don't know why our children do and act like they are. Yes, there's systemic stuff going on. In the midst of the systemic stuff, we got to do something to really matter. We got to make sure that the council, because every member of the council picked up a card. Every member said it was an atrocity, it was a crime that people not have access to good, healthy food. We are saturated with all kinds of food stuff, and it's thrown at us. You're absolutely right. We are saturated with things that are killing us. We have the highest rates of everything that will kill us. And it has direct correlation with our diet. I'm glad to have this opportunity to speak again on this matter because I can now address it from another point. We need to invest in grocers. If they don't want to come here, they can't do business downtown. See, Vince Gray had a great idea when he started talking to Walmart and talking about building these new 5 Walmart stores, even though I don't like Walmart about some other stuff, right? But the idea was where he went wrong with it, he let them build downtown and on Georgia Avenue where they wanted to build before he did Capitol Gateway and the Skyline development. So I point this out to you so the next time the council is at the table talking about bringing businesses here, we make them build east of the Anacostia first or they don't build at all. Why? Because as people talked about all of what we did and money and the taxpayer dollars. Thank you, Jamila. I love all of your presentations. But the idea is that we allow the tax dollars to be put in the same places that create the privilege that everybody has talked about. We must now put all incentives. Every time the city council, the mayor's office incentivizes a business, that business needs to be building east of the Anacostia River. First and foremost. Now, what happened with Good Food? I want to take liberty here and say what happened with Good Foods, right? And Philip's my friend. I know him. You know, we talked about building something in 7 and all of that. But the idea is that what he didn't do was he didn't build into his profit loss statement what he's going to lose. You're going to lose. And this is what you got to be honest with building, with businesses. You're going to lose something. And the city going to incentivize you for some of that loss. But you got to say it. You got to build it in. He didn't do it. So this is what we do. For every dollar we put up from the city money, right? For every dollar we put in there, we got to definitely make sure that the majority of that money is spent where we need the most, because that's how you lift up the community. That's how you do what Letitia asked about. So I just want to say, that's the point I came to say today is, man, we got to focus on grocery stores, because having more grocery stores, we got a total of 3, and I know that my time is up, right? It's not there, it's up. But we got a total of 3 that we get to pick from. Oh, we got Lidl's, I forgot. Okay, we got 4, right? We back to 3? Well, hold on, let me say this. If we had 6, we'd be below the bar based upon the number of people that are being served. The mayor touts, and I'm not mad with the mayor, but the mayor says we want a livable, walkable, workable, you know what I'm saying, DC, right? We can't walk to a grocery store in Ward 8. I can walk to the same way if I live in the Skyline development. But there are people in there who are afraid to walk there as a result of the incident that recently took place, which is gun violence. So I just want to bring it back to gun violence. We have to seriously put more grocers over here. When we look at a ward like Ward 6, when we look at a ward like Ward 3, man, they got like 13 different full service grocers. That's why I'm pointing out the 6 versus that per capita on people. And I'm gonna close my mouth with that. I am definitely available for questions to respond to anything that has been said by any member who has spoke, because I do this mostly for free, addressing the violence every day of my life.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anderson. We will now hear from Amanda Beal from ANC 8C08.
Thank you. So this afternoon, I'm presenting as an advisory neighborhood commissioner, but I'm also testifying as a licensed therapist here in the District of Columbia. So for my testimony, I want to discuss the impact of homicidal loss and its contributions to a cycle of violence in DC. This is important for us to look at this clinically, because we throw mental health around a lot, but we're not really narrowing down what it is that's going on in our communities that we need to focus on. So if you need any citations or sources, I'll be happy to send them. Multiple studies show that symptoms of violent death are more prevalent and significant than natural death. Why is that? It's unexpected. We have to deal with immediate attention. We have to deal with non-resolution. We have a lot of unsolved cases and people's opinions on what justice looks like. So I'm sharing that information because there are people who will say, well, I lost somebody too, and I don't want to go pick up a gun. It's not the same as a natural death. Also, you don't live in these environments. So how does that relate to DC in the current times? DC is a small town. When it comes to interpersonal violence, intercommunity violence, and street culture, it's even more of a small town. So when someone is killed and it hits the news, it hits pages like DMV Hood News or Washington Problems, you got all these people who don't even live in DC talking about what happened to your family member. So that's one thing. You got to deal with people gossiping, talking about what they don't know about. You have to deal with the unsolved murders. People don't get resolutions to their loss. DC in 2022 had 119 unsolved murders. That's minimally 119 families that are still grieving, that have no answers to what happened to their family members. There are people who beat their charges, maybe they get an plea agreement, or they aren't sentenced what people think. So justice is subjective. All that to say, this creates prolonged bereavement. Or in other words, it could be prolonged grief. PTSD, depression, and the major focal points of this are people are angry. And I've heard multiple people say this already. We are in a city, living in a community of people who are grieving. They have been grieving since the 90s. They have lost multiple family members. Prolonged grief is real, and people have not received the proper mental health services. That anger often transcends to revenge. We use the word retaliation a lot, but it's revenge. Revenge is a normal human response to anger. And I want to give the definition of revenge as quoted from the Journal of Social and Personality Psychology. An aggressive, often violent response to intentional harm that has been inflicted on the avengers and their families. It's a form of retaliation which seeks the satisfaction of returning a perceived humiliation, insult, or injury. Revenge is the most potent human passion. It's observed in nearly every culture, happens between people who know each other, between strangers, and it even starts in childhood. What we're dealing with in the district, and what we've been dealing with for a long time, is a lot of people who want justice. They want retaliation. They want to feel whole, and they don't get that. And so what a lot of people we're not talking about is, how do we get to those people? How do we help them deal with their grief? The idea of revenge is also exacerbated in inner cities because of things like street culture and the code of streets. You don't have to believe in the code of the streets. You don't even have to understand it, but it exists. So where I live at, if you kill my brother and I don't do nothing, I may be harassed some more. I may be bullied some more. People don't understand that because they don't have to live in these spaces. So getting your look back, not looking soft, and also finding justice within your environment is important. How does this lead to a cycle of violence? Well, the district has thousands of people over the past decades, hundreds currently right now. We're all living together and everybody's angry. I got to see the person who killed my brother walking down the street, and I can't do nothing about it. I mean, I can, but that's what I'm saying about it creating a cycle of violence, the revenge and the hurt and the pain in these environments. So what can DC officials do to combat this? You all have the answers. We're one of the most academically inclined cities probably in the world. We all have degrees. We have the answers, but we're not doing it. So instead of this 800 police Vincent Gray talking about, why are we putting 800 licensed counselors in these communities, all hands on deck? So when there's a shooting that happens on Langston Lane, there are counselors assigned to Langston Lane.
And the police sit out there at the church and everywhere else around there. And when they hit, they don't get up.
Yeah.
If all the cameras around there broke, not broke. I just lost my son around here, September the 2nd, 1921.
And so
2021, I meant to say.
bringing that back, the police cannot navigate those spaces. The police cannot heal. No one can do that but people that are trained to do it. And we need to be putting them there. Also with DCPS, budget cuts. A lot of these beefs are roll over into the school. So you got kids who are 7, 8 years old fighting because some of their uncles did.
Right.
So when we say all hands on deck, this is a state of emergency. If we don't want to see this in the next 10 to 5, 10, 15 years, then we have to do something now. People have to heal. They need conflict resolution. They need to know how to mediate. They need critical thinking. And all that costs way less than the police. Okay, I'm done.
What's your name, man?
Amanda.
Miss Amanda, my name is Veronica Black. I ain't gonna wait to get up here. So
Okay.
I need a therapist like you. I'm saying, you know, we don't have no support in DC for mothers or grieving fathers that lost their children. I had to talk to somebody all the way in Cleveland, Ohio.
This is true.
We need these programs in this city. I am so angry. But you know what? I got to go in because I'm parenting again. I'm raising my son, Thor, his only child. You see what I'm saying? And she lost her mother 6 months after her father. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm in the court system trying to get custody. And every day I got to walk up and down these streets. I got to travel up Alabama Avenue, come past Woodland, although I used to live in there. And all the cameras was broke right there when my son got killed. But guess what? They had a nerve to video this shit with the young man standing behind my son. And I give the video to the detectives. That's what they tell me. Oh, we can't do nothing about this video. We can't blow it up and see. You a damn lie. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Then they had people to call in and then go say, oh, well, they wouldn't come forward. They got to testify. But why would you put all this shit out for people to do? You see what I'm saying? That was my only son. I had 42 good years with him. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? And these young men that killed my child. And I'm very angry.
Yeah.
I'm a mother. And I'm also a mother that was out here in the street drug and committing crime. You see what I'm saying? I'm so fucking angry. But I'm glad I'm in the space that I'm in today. Because I want to blow all them motherfuckers up around here.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It's easy to get a gun and go out here and kill somebody. But it's hard to bite your tongue and hold on. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I need some help.
Yeah.
And I need a program here in DC to help me.
Yeah.
Not somewhere in Cleveland, Ohio. I need something right here because I am in pain.
Yes.
And every day people ask me, that's what I tell them. I'm great. That's all I can tell you. You see what I'm saying? Because don't nobody know my pain. Nobody know my pain. I text the detective board that's down homicide every month. Let's Guess what she tell me? Nothing has changed. We still investigating. It's a year and 6 months. You got the fucking video. Blow it up to get these damn people off the street. Don't make me go out here and commit a crime.
There we go.
Put it in my hands to do something, and then I lose everything that I've been blessed. She's gonna do it because she don't get mental health.
Right.
I get mental.
Yeah.
I get a mental health program, but fuck that. They ain't talking about what I'm going through because they don't have that type of resource.
Yep.
Resources. You see what I'm saying? Some man called me on the phone, I talked to him. What's that for Venture? Yeah. Dr. Z-Rack to give me medicine. Half the time I can't get my medicine because I got to give her blood work. Blood work for what? For what?
Yeah.
I called down the mayor office, complaining about this and complaining about that. But I'm here today as a mother that's in pain. Something got to be done. The cameras, what do you have cameras in the neighborhood for? You ain't got nobody back there watching.
I hear you.
If they shoot them out, break them, fix them. The police station right there. The police sit right there on the church premises. Then you have the police supposed to be on the property that's not there. They in some motherfucking body house or wherever the fuck they at. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I am sick and tired of homicide. Detective board telling me nothing has changed. When the change gonna come? You got the video. You got the video of the young man standing behind my son. And the person that took the video. Why you didn't bring them in for question?
Yeah. Well,
Something got to be
thank
done.
you so much for sharing your story. I'm so sorry for the unbelievable pain.
Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry.
And I think what we keep hearing too with the mental health supports that are clearly so needed is it shouldn't be so difficult to find, to access, to follow up with.
Well, I like to say to that, I'm a therapist, I'm in Ward 8, and we don't get the same recognition that white therapists do. And so oftentimes, our people are steered to the other side of the water, not even knowing that we're out there. And so when we get folks, they stay, or they refer folks. So I don't even advertise, I don't have to. Because my client will tell all of her friends or all of his friends, and I stay booked. And really, for me, and I'm sure for you, it is a lot because there's so much trauma in our community, you know, vicarious trauma. There's things going on that happen within us that we also can only see with so many folks. How many people can 2 or 3 or 5 therapists in Ward 8 or Ward 7 handle? What do you want out of us? We do the best that we can, and we always want to help. So now I'm inclined to want to talk to her before.
I can't wait to get from right
You need more therapists. You need
Yeah.
more therapists
We need-
who are interested and invested in our communities. I live in 7, who are invested in the areas where they live, and to do something good. Like, I pay rent. Why can't I have a space that I can see folks maybe for free sometimes? Maybe I'll do a group for free sometimes. That's right. But I
refer your person. Who refers you to the help? I'm listening. So can we talk about that? Because that's a service that I don't even know nothing about it. I'm sitting by an ANC commissioner, and she knows nothing about it. So anybody else in the board ain't know about this service?
No, I mean, there's so many, there's therapists out there that.
So how do we get referred to you being a therapist in our community?
For real?
She said she just said refer people that
People
go to
who
her
come
town
to me,
refer
they
other
refer
people.
their friends.
Oh, so just refer, okay.
So
Right.
I usually don't go down and get openings, and I'm sure that
I mean, DBH has a lot of core agencies, so really DBH,
I'm not playing with DBH.
a lot of therapists are employed through agencies that are under DBH, so.
And Ms. Beal, when we think about making sure that these services are available to people, especially when they're in pain and they may have lost somebody, what have you seen be most effective in reaching people for that initial interaction, both to to let them know that help is there, but also to build that trust from the outset?
You have to be like on the ground. And so we talk, the lady just left talking about her therapist in Ohio. So my first experience doing the therapy work, and I said Links and Lane, was through an organization called the Sharon Center. And that program was in the community. It was physically in the buildings off of Langston Lane or Knox, whatever street those were. Those families, those people in the community knew they could walk downstairs to people that worked in their community, that fed their children, and they could get services. Those are the kinds of services that we need. And we don't need to just have people that come and go. There needs to be a wraparound a safe space for people that look like them, that understand their culture, who aren't scared to walk through the streets at night, that they can come to when they need it. I mean, this is constant grief. This is acute stress. Like, it's not going away.
I also mentioned, in addition to the commissioner's remarks, what I'm seeing here also is a failure when the young lady that spoke, Office of the Aging, Department of Human Services, these are broken systems. They're broken, and they're funded millions of dollars. I know that millions of dollars are being, not only that, the resources are not there. And so you have this virtual cycle that people in need are being sent through, and they're not receiving services. So they're contacting this person, and this person is referring them to this person or connecting them to this person, and the services are never attained. So I'm thinking that if we're going to be able to get to the therapist from Ward 7, my neighbor, and then you as well, then we need to identify the bad actors who are receiving the funding and who have long been receiving the millions of dollars of funding. We need to get rid of them and bring on some people who are going to really serve our communities. And again, I'm for auditing, because we need to see with the lights on where the money's going, and we can hold people accountable. We want to hold people accountable rightly. So that's why I always start with the audits, because we see who's been receiving the funding and evaluations. Who have you been serving? Who have you been helping? And so I think for the most part, I think it would be safe to say we need to really look at Department of Human Services, Department of Behavioral Health, and we also need to look at the Office on the Aging, because apparently we're missing our people's concerns and needs for help.
Now. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that a couple of things, right? She took a few off the plate, which is great. No, that's great when, other people are saying something that I'm thinking in my head and I know I'm in the right space, right? So sometimes these organizations get so big, right, that the effectiveness of their services is, way off the mark. I'll use a good classic point, and Jamila spoke about the treatment center, the facility on Good Hope Road, right? They claim to, do all of what they do, but you see the reality. Jamila offered the opportunity for people to just go out there at 3, 4 in the morning and see how it starts to set itself up. I can only aspire. I can only aspire to the things that I see every day. You know what I'm saying? This privilege thing works that way, and that facility needs to be broken down and displaced. Sometimes we're providing great service, right? But we provide it in such a messed up situation that the fruits of it get destroyed before it can really take hold, right? So something like that meth clinic, right, should be broken down into 4 quarters. 4 quarters, displaced, moved. The current location should never be a location. It should be moved. If you move it 6 blocks, you reduce it by 25%, you get a whole different atmosphere on Good Hope Road, right? And part of this mental health thing is that somebody mentioned it, and it's what we need to do. So Vince Gray has offered up the idea of 800 officers. I don't know what that equates to in dollars. My math is not that fast, right? But if the council, if you agree with that, if you decide to support that, I would say support it 50% and take the other 50% of the value and put that into spaces for mental health. Real quick, Congress, right? Malcolm X School was closed. It was shut down. It was set for demolition or whatever they was gonna do with it. There was a shooting that took place up there, and somebody asked me, what should we do? I said, we should get that baby out that police car, number one. Too often, this is what happens when we go into situations where there are children involved and children are around, those children are traumatized. So now every time they see a police car after that, they're going to relive that experience. So children on crime scenes should not be put in police cars. That's why it's so important to have healthcare, mental health people on the scene. That's their job, to respond. But more than respond, I want us to begin to get in front of the violence. But that's just something. We had them reopen Malcolm X as a trauma center. That was the space that was supposed to have been. It turned into something else because watchful eyes wasn't on it, right? But it was supposed to have been the space that the community would then learn that when something happens, here's where you go. Here's where all of those support service people would be sitting, waiting, or when it happened, their job is to get there as soon as possible, just like the police get there. Because we have to separate our young people from the violence as much as we possibly can. And that's what I wanted to say in support of what we need to be doing as it relates to addressing the mental health of our community.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you very much. As I was coming over here today, I didn't know what I was going to experience, but I'm so glad to be here and to hear from you. I have to say I'm a father, and the idea of losing a child and having a video of that child, I cannot imagine the pain you must be experiencing. And to pull yourself up and to work to raise his child, you really so much to admire about what you're doing, and my heart goes out to you. It's got to be more than my heart going out to you. I don't want to kid you. We need to do things that make sense and can be helpful. Amanda, you laid it out in the abstract, and then we saw everything you said illustrated. And so, really grateful to the testimony. Stuart, you talked about grocery stores. And while you were talking about grocery stores, I thought about all the grocery stores in my neighborhood. And, I'm in Ward 3. I can think of 9 that if I were ambitious, I could walk to. And it's really it's an issue. And it goes back to what the commissioner said last time, it's structural. Because what those grocery stores do is they look at a neighborhood and they see what's the average income, how many of the people were college graduates, and then they decide whether or not that's a place that they think makes sense to locate. And that builds on a long history, and we need to, that's not going to change. They're not going to change. It's going to require government action along the kinds of things that you're talking about if you're going to change those dynamics. And I hear you on that. Sharice, we've talked over the years about school issues, and the other day, Ebony Rose Thompson, who's the Ward 7 State Board member and now the president of the State Board, testified about something that we had talked about for a long time, which was the idea of an infusion of significant investment in our schools, in our neighborhoods that need the greatest support. And doing something like that would send a message that we care and we're trying. We routinely send the opposite message. How on God's green earth we can talk about cutting the budgets for schools in this part of the city, in the environment that we are in? Who came up with that idea? We need to do the opposite. And will pledge and have for a decade worked to try to change that so that we're investing in these kids and not sending a message of disinvestment to them. When hearing all of this, I'm old, and so after however you want to describe it, the riots or the uprising in the late 60s, there was the Kerner Commission. And the Kerner Commission looked at all of the issues, what caused where we're at. And they looked at it and they said, frankly, that racism and poverty led us to where we were. This is 50 plus years ago. And they suggested a kind of investment that people today are talking about as being needed. And then in the politics of the day, it got twisted up into a debate about law and order and tough on crime. And we went a different way. And who among us, if you could go back 50 years, would have gone down the path that we went down then and wouldn't have gone down the path that the Kerner Commission was suggesting about how we address root causes? And if you think we should have gone down a different path then we sure as hell better be going down a different path now. So I don't know, I could ask you questions, but your testimony was so powerful. I just think here to listen and take it all in. And I really, really appreciate all of your testimony, including the woman whose, my heart really goes out to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's affirming. Absolutely. And right behind you, if you want to sign up, we'd love to hear from you. Okay, great. Thank you all so much. And I want to thank you, Mr. Anderson, as well, because you said something really powerfully to me over a year ago when we were talking about food as medicine and the conditions of the food in DC jail. And you said, a hungry man is an angry man. And I think about that all the time, and that is why I introduced a bill just a few weeks ago called the Fresh Starts Act to make sure that we're providing nutritious options with fruits and vegetables and protein and fresh meals for our DC jail. And we have a lot more work to do with that here in this community as well. So I want to thank you so much, and thank you all for your testimony. Looking forward to working with you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for anybody who's here that we can connect with services, and thank you so much. I think she may have stepped out. The mother who shared her heartbreaking story, both in terms of mental health services that are needed, but also in following up with the detective in the case. That's what we're here for as well. And we're all, my team is outside the door and be happy to chat with you too. We are going to move to our next panel. Okay. Veronica Black, if you're still here. Right, okay. I didn't know if she wanted to come up again. Okay, great. We'll come back to her. Okay, thank you. Brenda Jackson, public witness. Okay. Ambrose Lane Jr., public witness. Jimmy Jenkins, witness. And if Jimmy's not here, Burnell Smith. Oh, okay. Tiana Smith. Sure. And Betty Murray. Go ahead. Okay, please go ahead.
All right. I don't know if it's good morning or good afternoon.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's afternoon. Pleased to meet you. My name is Tiana Smith. I am a resident of Ward 8 for approximately 40 years. I attended Orr Elementary, Hahn Junior High School, which is now Trader Joe's, and H.D. Wilson Senior High School, and I graduated from St. Augustine's University for a criminal justice major. I am a former correctional officer, so I know what you mean as far as those meals, and they are something else over there. You know, we have went through a lot with trays and stuff, like tray monsters that, you know, want food, but it is not a sustainable amount of food in those trays, and it causes a lot of ruckus. But I want to point out a factor where I was taken of my car, and I had a 2019 Mazda. Someone took it from me, and at this point, my grandmother was my co-signer. That's my grandmother back there. She's a resident as well for over 60-some years. She's working for OSSI. She's taking care of a lot of people's kids in the community. But it's just a factor right now that they're trying to charge me with aggravated assault of what somebody else did with my car. So therefore, I'm looking on the news yesterday, and they say over 111 auto thefts and stuff like that. A percentage of auto thefts has been occurring. So the actual person that was injured was Caucasian. Me, I'm Afro-American. You're assaulting you're coming to my house, antagonize my grandmother, making her scared. It's just a mess. But I know my God has me. But it's just awful that I have to go through this because someone took my vehicle. And the detective is consistently, he's just really, he's racist, I could say. He's leaving notes on my boyfriend's door. If you don't come to court, if you don't bring your child to court too, because they're trying to say the child was in the, I had nothing to do with this. Not to mention, my grandmother woke up the other day and somebody knocked her windows out of her car in her backyard on Minnesota and Pennsylvania Avenue by Mario's Pizza Place. They covered up the camera. They took her wheels off her car. 2022 Camry. December the 31st, I was assaulted. The same detective that don't even care about if I got assaulted or not, while my mouth still messed up, my teeth cracked. He's taking care of my grandmother case right now and don't even know that we related. What are you doing for our community? Like, are you scared? I'm a criminal justice major, hire me. I know people in the community, hire me. I know some other people I can bring on, hire me. You know what I'm saying? But it's just so crazy that you have to go through these things in your city, where I was born and raised from. Pennsylvania Avenue, just like the lady said. They need more cameras right there. It's a high drug trafficking area. Right there, what she said, by the Old Mortons, right there, that intersection where all those cars go, I can look out my window and see everything that's going on. And if I could tell you the half of what I know, I'd be rich. But they always say, don't do no snitching. I'm not a snitch, but I see what I see. But at the end of the day, they need to do their investigation and know who to go after, because I'm not the one that had my car. So do your investigation, you know, and it's just like, it's just so horrific that my little grandma got to go through this stuff. Now they trying to send it to trial. No evidence or nothing, but race is a factor. The man that was struck by my vehicle was Caucasian. I'm African American. And I don't do the race card because guess what? I got Caucasians in my family. My cousin is Frederick Douglass, if you want to be exempt. You know, I mean, exact. So at the end of the day, I'm half Trinidadian. My father's from Trinidad and Tobago. But it just needs something to be done, a stronger force, more support. I just left juvenile corrections. I was a juvenile correctional officer at YNC. I was a mail lady. I'm always that one that had that great job, you know? And like the detective came to my house, oh, you were real, you know, I called all your jobs and they said that you were great in this place and that place. I know, because I show face, I show up and show out when I'm on the job. And I'm very professional. And I see kids, I see ex-inmates pass me in the street. Because if you do an inmate wrong, you guaranteed to see him in the street. You guaranteed to see him in the street. You never know what might happen. So I know I did my job while I was there. So at the end of the day, community policing is not like it used to be when you had the orange hats on the corner and stuff. When I was growing up, they had the long little cell phones with the antennas and you walking down the street and then your grandmother going to the little community meeting and everybody, you know, it's like a home, the homeowners program when they have the little community meetings and stuff like that. That's how our neighborhoods were back then. Don't nobody stick together. Everybody's scared. They try to mind their business so they won't get hurt because they have kids and they have grandkids and they have people that they have to worry about. So I just wanted to touch a little about that. And I just know that my God is awesome and he got me regardless. Amen. But what you won't do, because I'm very educated, is play me for a fool. Thank you. And thanks for hearing me, y'all.
Amen. Thank you so much, Ms. Smith. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Follow up about your case as well afterwards. Please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Betty Murray. I'm a 25-year-plus resident in the Congress Park community. I have an organization called Genuine Sisters Supporting Sisters. We actually service the Congress Heights and Congress Park community. I was trying to hold my tears back as this young lady was speaking, so that I'm speaking from facts and not emotions. But when you're really in the field doing this work, it's hard. It's hard. We're really not addressing what the real issue is. A lot of people spoke, a lot of educated people, as they stated, with degrees. But my degree comes from the hard knocks, university of the streets. I done been raped, I done been robbed, I've been to jail. I have 4 young adult children. I done sold drugs. I done been a little Kim that been up and down the block, getting the bag. I done been through all of that. But I don't lead my work by that. I lead my work on what God placed on my heart to do. When we're in these forums, and I will be at a lot of these forums from now on until I'm heard, because we're not addressing the poverty pimping that's really going on. The poverty pimping that's really going on. And for some of us to be in our communities and we are threatened, I stepped back from some of the work that I've been doing because I've been threatened, literally threatened. I've been threatened in front of a council member. I've been threatened by ANC members. I've been threatened by a young man, and I'm not saying no names because every forum that I step in, every violence forum that I find out about, I'm coming to. And my testimony gonna stay consistent. It's gonna be the same because facts don't need to be written. But the system is broken. How can you take a young man that did 17 years, not rehabilitate him, put him in a community to do violence intervention, and think that he's not going to be triggered by the least little thing? My life shouldn't be threatened by anyone in my community to the point that I will have to step back because I fear my life. We're not addressing that. We're not addressing when the government entities who has $117 million, the last time I checked, for violence intervention, that's being spreaded through these agencies. Nonprofits, some are being funded, the ones that's being funded for years. Yes, we got young ladies that need help in our community. I need counseling. She need counseling. But y'all put them out here to work. They threaten our lives. Did they get counseling before they started? And to make it really bad, when they go from one agency to another agency, like it's nothing. Okay, you're not a good fit here, but because your story fits what we trying to do here, because you did 17 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever you did, your story fit what we trying to do here. You make us look good in front of the cameras. So I don't mean this, no offense to anybody that's walking around in these nice jackets, whether it's violence interrupters or whoever else. I don't mean no harm. But are we really rehabilitating them before we put them back out in the community? I have lost respect for so many people in my own community because some of these kings stood there and watched. As much work as I do in the community, watched me be threatened by 3 different men that work for one of these government entities. And again, because we're about to be in litigation, some people tell me a lot of times, Betty, don't say this, they're gonna blackball you. Betty, don't do. Listen, I'd rather live and not die. That's number 1. Number 2, they already blackballed me anyway. They ain't doing nothing for me anyway, so I might as well speak up. One government agency that's running violence interruption prevention in my community, Congress Park, owed me $7,000 because they told me to do this, this, and that to help my program to service my community. I did that, bought everything I needed, got every receipt, every email, every text message, and I've been fighting them since July for my money. And it's not like they don't have it. So why are we not addressing the bigger issue? The people with these degrees who are assigned to put certain things in place, instead they come into the community and dangle a dollar. And if you dangle a dollar in a community that's already that's going through poverty, what do you think is gonna happen? Everybody gonna come out the woodwork trying to get a bite out of this apple. And instead of them coming together, excuse my expression, because I'm not racist at all, like y'all do, instead, we fight each other. This person don't like this person, that person don't like that. No, we can get more accomplished together than we can apart. But honestly, y'all know this already. For real, and I'm not pointing at you, I'm not pointing at you, but y'all are part of a system that is obviously broken. If we keep doing the same thing, we're gonna get the same results. So when do we make an effective change? And when do we start making our women? Because there's a ton of resources for these men, these returning citizens. I've been to jail. Okay. There's a ton of resources for the men. But who you think holding those men down when they gone? It's a strong Black queen behind them. Right. Holding them down, running the household, raising the kids. Miss Wanda, you know I love doing what I do in the community. I shouldn't have to step back because my life is threatened. That's crazy to me. I got brothers and sons too that I keep all of this away from because I don't want it to be a trickle effect. You understand that? My son's 26, 24, 22, and 21 years old, who has no idea. My brothers used to be about that life for real, who has no idea. And I keep it to spare the rod of peace.
Thank you.
When and what do we do? How can you help us? How do we stop this? How do we come together to make effective change? Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think what we keep hearing over and over again, and I like this phraseology someone said earlier of it can't be government down to determining what the community needs. It has to be the other way around. And so I will say what we can do is support your work and make sure that you have the resources and empowerment that you need to do the work you know needs to happen most effectively. Thank you. Mr. Ambrose Lane Jr., go ahead.
Thank you, Councilwoman Pinto and Councilman Fruman, for having this event here in Anacostia. This room should be packed. Everybody in here knows it, it should be packed. I didn't come here with the intention of testifying, but sometimes you're called and you just have to say what you need to say. I didn't come with prepared remarks, so I don't know what the hell's gonna come out my mouth. I just hope that God can speak through me. That's what I pray, that God can speak through me. Council members, you all are aware of my work. Most people in this room are aware of my work. I'm here representing the Health Alliance Network, which is DC's largest community-based health advocacy organization. But I'm also here today representing Million Man Vote. Million Man Vote is an effort that was recently started to register Black men to vote in DC, Maryland, Virginia, and beyond, so that Black men can realize and understand the power of their vote. So I also, my paid job is working with Children's National and with Georgetown University in a project called the Early Childhood Innovation Network. This project works with parents of young children 0 to 5 east of the river, Ward 7 and Ward 8. And I want to draw a picture, draw the line. Where we work with these families is to get them to a point of stability. What does that mean? We know that families, many families, especially with young children, might not have stable housing, might have mental health issues, might have behavioral health issues and other things that hinder them and hinder the ability for those children to grow up healthy. So I'm gonna draw the line. That's the starting point right there. Those children 0 to 5. Those parents that cannot get access to these kinds of services, that find themselves facing poverty, find themselves facing housing instability or hunger. We didn't even talk about the impact of hunger on violence, because there is a direct link for any child that grows up in hunger to commit acts of violence as an adult. There are studies that talk about this. So we know that poverty impacts. Aristotle, the great famous Greek philosopher, said, poverty is the parent of crime. We are dancing around talking about we need more police, we need more this, while we never address the issues of poverty in our community. I am proud to call myself a poverty abolitionist. I'm proud, just like the sister said earlier, I'm a abolish poverty. So I went to a meeting about 2 weeks ago when we circled this back to gun violence. I went to a meeting in Ward 8 by Live Long DC. My Health Alliance network is now dealing with the issue of opioids. And if y'all don't know, y'all need to know. From 2017 to 2022, at the end of 2022, there were 903 homicides in the District of Columbia, 903. In that same period of time, there were 2,036 opioid deaths, more than double the number of homicides. I went to a meeting in Ward 8 2 weeks ago by Live Long DC, and we had people there from the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council and the ONE's office, and they showed the maps of where the homicides and the gun violence take place and the map of where the opioid overdoses are taking place, and boom, they are the same map. Where you find high numbers of opioid overdoses, you are similarly finding gun violence. And I'll bet that if you overlaid a map of poverty, you would find the same map. And it isn't just Ward 7, Ward 8, it's also Ward 1. It's also Ward 5. It's also parts of Ward 4. The system that we think, the guy, he said it earlier, the system is designed to do what it's doing. But the truth of the matter is the behavioral health system and the mental health system is broken. The juvenile justice and the adult criminal justice system is broken. Rapid rehousing is a joke. So the housing system is broken. The homelessness system is broken. The education system, where they are systematically defunding our schools disproportionately east of the river, is broken. But what if you hear anything else in this conversation, members of the council, what you hear is our pain. We are in pain, but we are also a proud people. And because of our pride, we are resilient. We have to be resilient, whether we want to be or not. We don't have a choice. Otherwise, we won't survive, or we will succumb to the things that are institutionalized that will bring us down. So we are surviving our pain, and some of us, we mitigate our pain through drugs and alcohol. Some of us mitigate our pain through sex. Some of us mitigate our pain through violence. Our young people are in pain, not just because of the lack of government programs, but also because of the lack of the parenting and the love they need to be shown by us in the community as well. I'm just gonna tell the truth. And they are lashing out because they are not receiving the proper amount of love. When we talk about love, we're not just talking about love from our parents and our communities, we're also talking about love from those that are elected. Because if they're not providing the resources, they can tell when the resources are not being provided. They can tell when a community is built and it ain't built with their input, and it don't even look like it's for them. They understand these things. And because they understand these things, they are reaching a point where they just don't care. But that's not the whole story. We're here talking about gun violence, and I'm gonna cite two reports. I'm gonna cite the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform report, and I'm gonna cite the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council report. The National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform report, and I'm sure you are familiar with these reports, says that the average victim of gun violence is 26. The average perpetrator is 31. When we talk about crime, we can't just say that it's all youth crime, because it's not just all youth crime. Those are adults. Number two, we know from the data that youth crime in terms of violent crime and in terms of carjackings is up. But every other category of youth crime is down. Youth arrests in every other category is down. There's a handful of those that we need to reach. And like the scripture says, the good shepherd goes after the one that's lost. The people that are in this room are the good shepherds going after the one that's lost. We're hoping that members of the council will go after the ones that are lost. But that presents a danger, because if we go after me and my wife had an hour-long conversation about this at 1 o'clock in the morning, bless her heart. She said the danger is that if you go after the one that's lost, you leave the ones that are all right vulnerable, because they might end up being lost because you're not dead. That's a hard conversation to have, because then you got to decide where you're going to put your energy, where you're going to put your money, where you're going to put your resources. If you go at, so there's a scale. You got the middle right here. On this side, you have some lost, you have some that are moderately lost, and then you have the ones that are really lost. On the other side, you have some that are all right, some that are moderately all right, and some that are really all right. The ones that are really all right generally are white, generally middle class and above African Americans. But everybody else is either in that moderately all right or moderately or somewhat saved. But then you've got a group over here that's somewhat lost. How do you prevent the ones that's somewhat saved from crossing that line? How much money do you put in that, so that the ones that become somewhat lost don't become moderately lost, don't become way lost? How much money do you apply to that? How much resources do you apply to that? The Criminal Justice Coordinating Council report says, and it tells us that the ones that are the most risk at involvement in the juvenile justice system experience high rates of neglect, high rates of abuse, high rates, and it was mentioned earlier, high rates of school suspensions. All of these things are telltale signs in terms of the things that we have to address. And Stuart was there yesterday. There might be someone else here that was there the day before yesterday, a press conference that I know you were, Sister Betty. That Ron Moulton had over at the Safeway. Why were we up at the Safeway? Because the shooting that took place at the Safeway, right on Alabama Avenue, right up the street, for those that don't know. The brother was running and shooting at the brother he was trying to hit. He missed. And 150 feet away, half a football field away, a woman in her car got hit in the back twice. He was just random. He was just trying to get him. He's running the street this daylight. That's why we were up there. That's why Ron is going to do something at Cleveland Park tomorrow. That's in the white neighborhood, just so that y'all know, Cleveland Park. He's going to bring it because the truth of the matter is it affects us all. And if you're not willing to do something about it by telling your government that these kinds of programs and efforts need to be funded, but it isn't just about programs, it's also about changing a system that has been embedded in racism. 1952 was the Brown versus Board of Education, and Thurgood Marshall and the lawyers argued to the Supreme Court about the desegregation of schools. And in that argument, it included a case that was about Sousa Middle School. Did y'all know that? I got one question to ask before I drop. I just want you to raise your hands. Does anyone know who the Lion of Anacostia is? If you do know, just raise your hand. The Lion of Anacostia. Do you know who that is? If you do know, raise your hand. All right, I'm gonna share this with y'all.
And Mr. Lane, I'll ask you to have this be your last comment because we've got a lot more speakers to hear from. Thank you.
Because this goes to the defunding of our schools. The Lion of Anacostia said, "It is not the light that we need, but the fire. It is not the gentle shower, but the thunder. We need the storm, the whirlwind, and the earthquake." That was the Lion of Anacostia, and his name was Frederick Douglass. Agitate, agitate, agitate. That's the thing that we must do to get what we say it is we want, because right now we're not doing enough to get what we say it is we want. I want to thank the council members for having this. I'm sorry that I went on a little bit, but Lord have mercy, it's on my heart. And, you know, I really want to lift up Sister Black over there because her testimony just moved me. It just, I can't even speak on it. It just moved me. We have got so much more to do. And the sooner that we admit that these systems are broken, the sooner we can start fixing these systems.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate that. And I'm glad, Mr. Lane, that you talked about the statistics about youth, because I think it's so important when we talk about young people. We also lift up the amazing things young people are doing in our city every day. This is not a problem we have with youth in DC. We need to be providing them more opportunities and with love, as you said. So thank you, Councilor Freeman.
Sure, thank you very much. Mr. Lane, I guess we all knew you were going to talk for a little while and preach to us some. And
sorry about that, Matt.
Yeah,
I appreciate it, council member.
No. You're everywhere and doing all kinds of great work, and it's really important to hear it, and it's really useful the way that you laid it all out. And a couple of things that you talked about. One, tomorrow at Cleveland Park, I'm going to be there with Ron Moten and Jeffrey Anderson and Colby King, and anybody who's interested in joining us, please do. Talked about resilience, and I gotta say, like, if I felt like I was under the kinds of pressures that different people here have talked about, I worry that I would crumble like a dry leaf. It's so impressive. A mother who's gone through as much as she has and is caring for her grandchild and putting one foot in front of the other. A mother and a sister who's absorbing all of those pressures and not letting it spread. The resilience to do that. A person who's served in so many different capacities and is finding themselves and their grandmother treated in the way that you feel like you've been treated, you know, to put one foot in front of the other. It takes an incredible amount of resilience, and it falls to us to try to figure out how to help in this situation. I'll tell you things that I feel like I've been hearing. I don't know where we are in this process, how many more will be.
We've got about 20 more speakers.
Okay.
Questions though that wasn't answered. Are we having a follow-up meeting, or can we get y'all contact information? Because we asked direct questions that wasn't answered. I appreciate you for speaking on the resilience of what he spoke about, but we asked direct questions that wasn't answered. And with you being in your position and me being a woman leader in the community, a woman advocate in the community, and to feel threatened as I do within my own community, you still didn't answer either one of our actual questions. But you can answer them offline if you choose. That's fine.
So reach out to me, mfruman@dccouncil.gov, and we can have a follow-up conversation.
And I'll say, for both of your particular cases, that's why my whole team is here as well, so that we can talk to you and get you connected. And we'll absolutely be having follow-ups. This is our first start of the conversation since we just took over this committee, and this is absolutely not the last. We're here to.
Do you already understand that when you don't follow up with forums like this, or when you don't implement change with stuff like this, at some point people have to protect themselves, which cause a trickle effect within the neighborhood. We kill each other in the neighborhood, and then before you know it, y'all come shut down the neighborhood, do gentrification, and say we the reasons why, because there's so much crime that y'all knew was happening and allowed certain things to happen without change. We can't keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. Thank you.
I hear you. That's why we're here.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are now going to hear from Jimmy Jenkins and Marcus Hughes. You're here. Jay Barber, Keith Hardy, Naike Sivan. All right. Christopher Hawthorne. Rylinda Rhodes. Roger Mitchell Jr. Said Wright, Wright Family Foundation. Okay, hi. All right. Please go ahead.
All right, let me say something.
Sure.
Can we be mindful that we have over 20 more people left on the list and to pay attention to the time because I'm sure everyone wants to testify. And if people keep going over, you won't be able to testify because we have to leave here at like 4:30, so. No, I'm not talking, but I'm just saying. Be mindful of the time.
Thank you, Akima. And it's right here as well for people to watch. Please, Anthony Petty, go ahead.
Jimmy was gonna start.
Oh, okay, no problem. Jimmy Jenkins, go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Jimmy Jenkins. I'm the CEO and founder of Manpower DC. Born and raised in Washington, DC, right here in Southeast specifically. Reason I'm testifying is to speak on behalf of my generation and this generation that we constantly are not impacting as we should. When we talk about safety and we talk about police, I think right now as a city, and for many years I watched it since I made my transition, we are approaching and attacking the wrong thing, and that's violence and that's safety. All of these things are results of poverty. Many of our young people are not given opportunities where they could gain equitable opportunities. When you talk about all the economic opportunities that's being placed in their communities, when you talk about just across the street construction sites, when you talk about the new buildings and new affordable housing things that's coming, displacement has caused many of our people to not feel safe, right? You have communities now that's filled with 7 and 8 different neighborhoods who may not be cool with each other. And some of these things are not being addressed by our city. And so we also have a city where anybody can come up and say that they're credible to work with these different communities. And that's another issue we facing in this city. And so for me, I sit back and watch forums like this happen and nothing be done after that, right? And I think most of the time it's because the people who need to be able to voice their opinion are not in the room, right? And so for me, I feel like we as leaders got to do a better job of taking these forums actually to these young people. Like, have you ever sat outside and set up a hearing for young people out on a block so they can have conversation? No, we have not. And so we may be smart or we may be trained or skilled to do work with these young people, but we don't know exactly how they feel, right? And we have too many people speaking on their behalf and not really understanding what they're going through, right? And how they feel. And so I feel like a lot of the stuff that we're bringing to the table is good stuff, but you have no results because you have no relationships. And so I think the city right now, like, I look at, they had they had something at Safeway, right? And I'm like, okay, we have these type of shootings happening all through Southeast. But because most of the people in these communities are not connected to Fox 5 or Channel 9 or some of these major leaders, they can't organize something to that magnitude, right? And they can't highlight the things that they see. You know what I mean? And so for me, I ain't gonna lie to you. My first meeting I ever came to was in this space. That's why I came here today. And I was brought here with Councilmember Trayon White brought me here. And it's the same conversation. And this was 7 years ago. And we dealing with the same issues, right? But if you look at it, we are funding the same people. We are voting for the same people, right? And so we talk about change, but we got the same people at the table, even on the police side, on the community-based organization side, And even when we talk about the politicians, they all the same. And so we want to have real conversation. Let's talk about, like they talk about, like don't reinvent the wheel, but we got a flat tire. So we need to take the wheel off the car and put some new wheels and tires on the car, because it's a time for change. That's how you change. You can't change by voice. You got to change by putting new people in position, right? And it's going to start with hearing directly from the people. People not going to come downtown. People are tired. Grandma tired. The mom tired. The kids tired. We all tired. And a little bit, I'm be tired. So I'm just saying, like, we can't keep trying to have these conversations, and then after we have these conversations, we take this information and create a platform so we can go to some new level and our people still stay the same. And so I know my time is going off, but this is why I came here to speak on the behalf of the community and why we feel like all this stuff is not worth it.
Thank you. Nike Savain, is that?
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Pinto, Councilmember Fruman, and members of the community. My name is Nike Savain. I previously served as a member of the DC Police Reform Commission and as a lawyer for children in foster care in the district. I'm now the Director of Policy at DC Justice Lab and a proud resident of Benning Ridge in Ward 7. I'm here as a policy advocate, but I'm also here as somebody who lives with the trauma of gun violence. 15 years ago, my mother's cousin was shot and killed at point blank range in broad daylight while her 10-year-old daughter and niece were standing 3 feet away. Not long after, my older cousin was kidnapped at gunpoint in front of his house and held for 10 days. And last year, my coworker was shot and killed on his way home. These days, I hear gun violence or gunshots when I'm watching TV, doing the dishes, playing with my dogs, and sleeping. And like all of you, I'm deeply invested in a safe community for my neighbors and also for my family and myself. I'm so grateful to have heard such thoughtful, creative, and non-carceral approaches to preventing gun violence proposed by so many community members, because we cannot police, prosecute, or punish our way to safety. Despite what we're being told yet again, we know more police officers, whether on patrol, in specialized units, or in schools, doesn't mean less gun violence. We know this because 100 officers working Mochella couldn't stop Chase Poole from being killed and others from being wounded. We know this because over 300 highly trained officers in Uvalde did not stop 19 babies and their teachers from being gunned down in their classrooms by one shooter. We know this because Deon Kay, Karan Hilton Brown, Jeffrey Price, Kevin Hargrave Sherd, Antoine Gilmore, and others were all killed by police. Those are just the stories that make the headlines. However, what doesn't make the headlines is that proactive policing can also actually increase crime. Researchers studied the effects of proactive pedestrian stops on a group of Black and Latino high school boys every 6 months over 2 years to understand the effect of those stops on their behavior. They found that delinquent behavior did not actually predict whether a boy would be stopped, that police stops were associated with future delinquent behavior, and that the younger a boy was stopped, the higher the chances of delinquent behavior 6 months later. In other words, police stops could trigger young people to engage in delinquent behavior because they know that good behavior will not protect them from being targeted. That is state violence. When we take into account the massive amount of state violence through policing, incarceration, family separation, inadequate and unsafe housing, underfunded schools and recreational spaces, and others, we start to understand that community violence is heartbreaking, but it is far from senseless, because victims and perpetrators are not two separate groups. There's a well-established relationship between people experiencing and perpetrating harm. If you have been victimized, you are more likely to perpetuate violence, and if you have perpetrated violence, you are more likely to be victimized. As a lawyer for children in foster care, I watched this happen in real time as my clients grew from kindergartners and elementary students to teenagers and young adults some were afraid of. They too were just trying to keep themselves safe. They fought because they wanted to be safe from physical injury. They stole because they wanted to be safe from deprivation and neglect at the hands of the people who were supposed to care for them. How do we arrest and incarcerate our way out of that? We can't. What we can do is make it easier for everyone to not just survive, but to thrive in the district so people don't have to engage in behavior that puts themselves and others at risk. I'm here today to ask you not to legislate from a place of fear. Fear leads to policies that might make some people feel safer, but won't actually make anyone safer because they just cause more harm. You've already heard from powerful witnesses about the desperate need to meet people's basic needs, so I'll keep my recommendations narrow. First, the council should use its oversight powers to look deeply at what conduct actually requires an armed response, then work with MPD and the administration to ensure that everything else gets a non-police response. Doing so would free up officers to focus on gun violence and behavior that actively threatens the physical safety of community members. It would also provide support in a government response less likely to escalate violence. Second, please fund the incredible work of community organizations like the Trigger Project and so many others. Like other committed neighbors, Tia and her team of volunteers are helping young people make different choices every day. The entire district benefits from this work, and we'd benefit even more if they could do this full time. And finally, the district should follow through after the council passes laws to support community members. There are no consequences when government agencies violate the laws that council has passed. The Second Chance Act, another bill, the Second Chance Act, which will make people more people eligible to have their records expunged or sealed, is scheduled to take effect in less than 2 weeks. This new law will help more residents access employment, housing, and other supports. But what has the district done to teach people about this opportunity and to help them apply for relief that could change their lives? Again, we cannot police, prosecute, or punish our way to safety. Instead, decrease state violence, invest early, often, and consistently in communities and community-led efforts, and follow through on your own work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Petty?
First, I'd like to thank Councilwoman Pinto for allowing me to speak, and also you, Councilman Fromm. But I want to first say, I want to thank y'all for this opportunity, to share our concerns about the violence that's in Ward 8 and the impact it have on our youth and community members. J&J Martin are deeply committed to the well-being and safety of our community. Today, I got a call from a mother whose son has been released from New Beginnings in 1 month. She was so frantic due to the fact that her son must come back to the same violent environment that helped start the youth on a downward spiral. She continued to ask for relocation due to the trauma she has faced growing up in the same type place, and not went to the streets to grab hold of her son and away from her. These are situations we deal with every day, and it certainly alarms me. It highlights the urgent need for a comprehensive solution that addresses the root cause of violence in our community and provides support for those who have been affected by it. It is important to explore all possible options for the mother and her son, including relocation, counseling, and access to resources that can help them build a brighter future. Additionally, it is crucial to engage in community-wide efforts to prevent violence and create safe environment for all residents. As a provider, we had a crucial role to play in this process by working with community stakeholders to develop and implement effective strategies that address the complex and interconnected issues that contribute to violence. This may involve collaboration with local governments and other community organizations to promote education, employment opportunities, and other resources that support positive youth development and reduce the likelihood of involvement in violent activity. Overall, we at J&J Martin are actively engaged in the community to provide resources that can help individuals reach their full potentials and create a healthy, verdant environment for all Ward 8 residents, in hopes that working together we can create a safe and more resilient community for all residents. And thank you for allowing me to share. One of the things that I wanted to say, and I want to apologize to that lady, as an individual who works within DC community as a whole with youth, credible message of violent interrupted, safe passage. I see a lot of the violence that's perpetrated amongst the youth, amongst the families, amongst the individual within Washington, D.C. But one of the things I want people to always remember, hurt people hurt people. And that's something that I understand a lot by me talking with the youth. They don't mean a lot of stuff that they do, but they come from an environment that shows them when you're a kid, your mother tell you, if someone hits you, you hit them back. And if they too big, you pick something up and hit them upside the head. This is what you're taught as a kid. And as you grow up in these environments, you're taught to always respond with violence when somebody commit violence to you. And as an individual, myself, who went to prison at 16 years old, did 30 years in the penal system, from Lawton to the federal prison, I understand that there's not programs in there that's gonna help with my rehabilitation. I help with my own rehabilitation by me wanting what's best for me wanting to see myself prosper, me wanting to see my mother smile. So we cannot lock all individuals up and expect them to come home changed. We have to have the programs here as also in some of these prisons for when these guys come home, they could get the tech skills they need. Because a person like me, I never in my life seen a computer or got a cell phone or know how to work it. These are the skills we need. We don't want to be cleaning buses. We don't want to be janitors. We want to work within the workforce of Washington, D.C. As everyone spoke of today, we have a vibrant city with a lot of jobs where people come all over the United States. Why not get those same jobs to return to city so they could always reside in D.C.? The housing situation is out of this world. Nobody who comes home from Washington, D.C. can live in Washington, because gentrification have pushed their families out. So now you can't receive the resources that's given to any Washington, D.C. individual who's a returning citizen. So it's a lot of things that we must do. As Jimmy just said, we can have all these meetings that we want, but if no action is being put forth to help, a lot of this violence will continue. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for all of the testimonies. And Jimmy, you know, I hear you on the 7 years ago you were here and you were saying the same kinds of things right in this very room, it sounds like, or at least in this library. And it's hard to offer promise. As it happens, I am brand new, and Councilmember Pinto is relatively new on the council and new in her position, and we have to be held accountable for what we do. And we are here to listen and to try to figure out strategies that can work, and trying to hear from folks of the concrete suggestions of what we should do. So in a way, it's the history of the country. It's not 7 years, it's hundreds of years that we're contending with. But you have people who want to try to make a difference, and we're here to try to hear about what are the kinds of things that we can do. Those are easy words to say, and in a couple of years you look at me and see whether you think I did anything that made you feel like I was responsive to the things that you raised, but I'm going to try.
And I want to commend you on that, right? I still truly believe, like, and I just want y'all to hear me on this, is that it has to be like someone said, I think you said, you can't be afraid to make those changes, because y'all stepped into seats where policies were not fitting for this side, right? There's segregation within the bridge, right? On this side of town, we don't have the necessary things. And it's going to take for some of your colleagues not to like some of the things that you introduce. But when you introduce it, it has to make sense for the people that you're sitting in front of. And so, and then you have to bring the people, you have to go into the community like you're doing now, but it has to be consistent. Like, it has to be a follow-up and a follow-through. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm glad that y'all here. This is appreciative, but I've seen this before. But if I can see you again next week or again sometime this month, then I'll know that you're serious, because it's about strategy, right? And it's going to take for you guys to be here. And so, and being consistent, right? And so that's what I'm saying.
Message received.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. And I'm sorry that I had to step out for a moment. And I just want to echo that I hear this being brought up from a number of folks today, that it's about the follow-up, about the consistency. You don't know me yet, and I don't know you yet, although I did see you last weekend at the youth hearing, at the Rise Center. And that's on me to prove it to you, and make sure that we can continue these conversations and that it will not end today. So thank you all. Thank you. Okay. Next we will go to Antoine Gatlin, Lashona Thompson-L, Carlene Reed, Caroline Zagranichna, ANC 2F08. Hi. All right, is Marcus Hughes here? Okay, William Gibson, public witness. Okay, and I'm just gonna briefly read some of the names that I weren't here earlier, but in case you've come: Robert Vincent Branham, Jay Barber, Keith Hardy, Christopher Hawthorne, Rylonda Rhodes, Roger Mitchell Jr., Sade Wright. Okay, I think this is our last panel. If there's anybody else here who would like to testify today, please feel free to come join. Thank you, welcome. And if you could say your name as you begin as well. Go ahead, Lashona.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Pinto and Councilmember Fruman. My name is Lashona Thompson-Neal. I'm the executive director of Peaceful DC. Peaceful DC is a nonprofit organization committed to frontline workers across the city who are working in various high-risk neighborhoods to prevent shootings and homicides. I was also born and raised in Ward 8, and I'm currently a homeowner in Ward 7. And I'm also a returning citizen, formerly incarcerated. When I was 19 years old, I was convicted of a violent crime. I spent 18 years in prison, and I was released in 2011. So for the past 11 years, I have been committed to social justice, criminal justice reform, restorative justice, transformative justice, and community violence intervention. And as Jimmy said, I've had countless conversations like this one. And to be honest, I wasn't really excited about being here today because I'm exhausted, working 7 days a week. And I'm here because I have a friend who lost 3 sons to gun violence in Ward 8, close to where we are now. I'm here because I support the frontline violence interrupters who are working in the neighborhoods to do a very difficult job. And I'm here because the two of you are new to the city council and your roles. And I really felt your heart when you said that you would try. So I appreciate that. I want to give a very special honor to everybody who is here today, because I can imagine how exhausted they are as well, but they're here and they stuck it out to listen and hold space for everybody else that had the opportunity to come up here and speak today. So thank you for this opportunity. I'll just run through my talking points really quickly, and then I'll be here to answer any questions if you have any. So my recommendations are, first, I think we need to consolidate our community violence intervention programs that are currently being operated by the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement and the Office of the Attorney General. If there's anything that I discussed that you feel like we need to talk more about, I'm available. I was working at the DC Office of the Attorney General when the Cure the Streets program was started. I helped to start that program under the leadership of Seema Gajwani, under the direction of the Attorney General, Carl Racine. And so I currently now work with some of the staff from the ONE's office through my role in Peaceful DC. So if there's anything I can share about why I think these recommendations need to happen, we could do that offline. So again, I think we should consolidate our CVI programs that are currently operated by the ONE's office and OAG. The one's office is currently spending on average about $1.7 million for 8 neighborhoods. So if they have one CBO operating in 8 neighborhoods, they're giving them about $1.7 million. That means that 12 staff for 8 neighborhoods. If you do the math, that's not even 2 staff per neighborhood. And they're required to cover an entire neighborhood, not just a target area within a neighborhood. Whereas with the OAG program, they're spending a little bit over $800,000 per site, per neighborhood. And they're working in a small geographic area within the larger neighborhood. So they're working in target neighborhoods where the violence is persistent, where the high-risk crews are associated. And these individuals are responsible for most of the gun violence that's happening in the larger neighborhood. They have 10 staff, they have program manager, supervisor, outreach workers, violence interrupters, and they also have funding for office space, uniforms, participant events. The list goes on and on. All of this information you guys can find out. I don't need to educate you on this. As it was recommended by the National Institute for the Criminal Justice Reform, I think that we should take the recommendation to make sure that these violence interrupters have life coaches and social workers to work alongside them to help move the high-risk individuals through the transformation process. So the high-risk individuals that we are employing, many of them have the credibility and the relationships and the influence in the neighborhoods, and they are able to sort of put out the fire, squash the beef for the moment, but they don't have the skills, the resources, or the professionals to help them really move people through the transformation process. And I'm talking about a long-term process. This is not a 90-day process or a 6-month process. The CVI teams need to be funded to be able to provide incentivized programming to high-risk individuals. I think that they need technical assistance for capacity building. And by that, I mean the executive directors of the community-based organizations. There are too many uncovered areas, especially in Ward 8. Most specifically, I think we need coverage in Robinson Place, Stanton Glen, Henson Ridge, and Parkway Overlook. We need mental health services for the staff who are working in these community violence intervention programs, mental health services for the participants they are serving, the high-risk individuals who are most likely to be involved in gun violence, and we need mental health services in our high-risk schools in high-risk neighborhoods, meaning Ballou, Anacostia, H.D. Woodson, and so on. I think that is it for me. That was quick.
Thank you. Really appreciate all the work you do.
Thank you.
So consistently. I know it must be exhausting.
Go for it.
You go for a few ladies.
Please.
Okay. Actually, I think I want to be the last voice. Do you mind?
Thanks.
Good evening. Good afternoon. My name's Jihad Barnes. I currently operate a transitional house for returning citizens, returning men. I didn't plan on speaking today. I've been to quite a few of these meetings. And like the young man Jimmy was saying, and the other sister and other people that spoke, it's like a recurring themes, like a recurring thing. We say these, what the issue is and how you can solve these things, but none is being done. So I think first that the men, right? The men got to go into these neighborhoods because we talk about gun violence, right? So the men will have to go into these neighborhoods and get their young men and young women about the street because they're not going to listen and respond to anybody. They're going to respond to men that came from a similar path because that's how the young men are today. Now, I created a transitional house because I see a lot of homelessness in DC. And men come home, like the young man was saying before he left, Pete, they don't have support systems in place. So with the gentrification mode in full beast mode, they are being locked out, not only their housing. Let me address that right quick. Housing is the single most important thing to humanity. Because if an individual don't have a house, he's really homeless. So when the individual's in prison, or where he may be, or she may be, they don't think about what they're gonna eat. They don't think about what they're gonna wear. They don't think about who they're gonna have sex with. They think about where they're gonna lay their head at. So when the individual come home,
and that support is not there, they're led back to the streets. On a lot of occasions, they are led back to the streets. So this is one of the reasons I decided to create and develop a transitional house for not only returning citizens, but homeless veterans, right? Because they're not being tended to as well. So now,
Take your time.
I gotta go back to my notes. I wrote a lot of stuff down. So this housing, this gentrification. So the housing is connected to the gentrification. And the gentrification is connected to the youth. Because now the youth sense that, hey, they don't have a safe place. They see everybody coming to their city, so they feel like they're in us, like they can't get out. They fearful. And one thing I learned about fear and hope, when the individual don't have no hope, he's like a deranged animal. That's what hope is when you take hope from that individual. Because now they're locked in, they're frustrated, so they're killing each other at an alarming rate because they're locked in this particular box and they can't get out of it. So they see people not like them taking their city over. This is their mindset. So they don't care about nothing else. They don't care about killing their brother, killing their sister, killing the baby, because the hope is gone. The hope is gone. And one thing that can instill that, so I go to a lot of these forums. Nobody never suggests, the only thing they say is lock these youth up. And everything that the people said up here was prevalent, it was important. But they never come up with a viable solution. So Jimmy said something important, take it to the youth so you can see what they're feeling. That's one mitigating factor. Also, by the time they're 16, a lot of these youth, they already got their mindset, they're gonna drop out of school. In DC, you can drop out of school at 16. So they already got that mindset, that's already embedded in them. So they hang on the street and do whatever they do. But if you create something for them 16-year-olds, for them 15-year-olds, like alternative school, that you pay them like back in the day, they had Bell, Armstrong, and all these vocational schools, like in the early 70s, in the middle, but they cut them out. But create these type of institutions that will provide some type of stability for these young men that said, hey, I ain't going to school. I don't have to go to school in DC. And also what you can put in place, these are suggestions that I came up with. I put like a 12-point suggestion together. Proposal. Another suggestion, the youth hang in corners in packs. If you see them loitering, hey, break them up. You can't loiter. And it's another thing. The police, like the sister said, they don't do nothing. It'd be an open drug market right here and the police be right here. Gas stations, all these other places. One more point in regards to this. I said a curfew. That need to be in place. A curfew for young men and women. If they don't have a permission slip or something saying that, hey, they need to go out to a particular job or they need to go to this place, that'll cut a lot of the violence down in the city. That'll cut a lot of violence down the city. So you say you want to be safe, but in your mind, you really don't want to be safe because the police continue to allow these young men and young women perpetuate these particular crimes and they're not doing nothing really about it. Okay, even if they do lock this individual up, now he's in prison for 10, 20 years, and then when he come back home, he's not gonna have a place to stay. So what I just stated is 2, 3 answers to the problem that's going on in DC, the housing and the youth. They are connected. When I say youth, I'm talking about men from 13 to 30, even more than that because of their mindset. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Commissioner, please go ahead. I saw you may have had a question.
No, I'm waiting until you're this down.
Thank you. I chose myself to be last because I feel like your voice is more important than mine. As someone that has lived in this city for close to 7 years, but I am a white girl from the Midwestern suburbs of Chicago. That is, and I now call this my home. I do, but I also, so to keep it streamlined, I volunteer with our unhoused community. I am there consistently And to gain trust, this means nothing without consistent trust. This means nothing without showing up and engaging in dialogue. Because what folks came here, they trauma dumped. You felt the energy. It is traumatizing to talk about this. It is. And it is so important to follow through. And when you confer with your experts, when you confirm with people that have PhDs, bred for the city, everyone else, whatever solutions you are coming up with, you need to talk to these people. And yeah, talk to the youth. Go outside of an elementary school, a middle school, a high school, hang out, talk to people. And I mean, I also do tenant organizing work. So you talk about housing, and then the gentleman here talked about the scale of people who are like really all right, kind of all right, all right. And then on the opposite end, not really okay, moderately not okay, really not okay. And there is over 30% vacancy unit in DC public housing. And there are Black and brown families actively being evicted in landlord-tenant court because of bad housing conditions, not being able to afford their rent. It is a system that perpetuates itself. And I just hope that you take away from this conversation, I'm kind of losing my point now, but yes, like showing up, holding this town panel is so important. And also to keep it recording, because I noticed that once it got heated, the camera went off. There's no video camera or media person anymore capturing this conversation, this dialogue, all these ideas. Like it is so valuable to have it be open and public and shared, and to not be afraid of fear and anger. Because yes, you are approached with a lot of anger. You are approached with a lot of trauma and pain. And so don't re-traumatize these people by making them come to the same meetings over and over and over again, telling you the same shit. That's I think where the frustration that people feel. And when you talk about housing, you talk about the fact that we have a huge vacancy rate in public housing. We are only utilizing 18% of our vouchers as well. Pet V is closing. When you talk about the unhoused population as well, the city very clearly shows that if you get evicted and you have no options, it will not support you. It will not help you. I have watched the same people, the same individuals since August of 2021 move from encampment to encampment. I know I've told you this before, and I appreciate your attention on this. I have seen them move physically within a 3-block radius and do the SPDAT assessments and get their housing vouchers. And guess what? Still get evicted. Still get moved to the next encampment. And then you know what's going to happen next? McPherson just happened. Foggy Bottom is next. And where is these people's housing? Why is rent going to increase by potentially 6.8% all the way to 8.9%? I can't pay my bills and I look like this. I'm about to go waitress, and I am an ANC and I work at a non-for-profit. This is an issue that deeply, deeply impacts our city on such a level that the council, and I thank you again for being here, but the council has so long regarded these forums as just a venting space. The community, the hoity-toity people and the loud voices and the angry people have a place where they can speak their mind, and we're just gonna keep on going because we as commissioners, as council members are leaders. We are there to lead. No, you are here to serve. I serve. This is service. And I got a friend right here who keeps me accountable, who is a DC native. How many generations? Well, still, that's long enough. But I'm held accountable. I sit with people's angers, people's pain, and I use myself as a shield and a sword, but at the direction of the community, always. But at the direction of those most impacted. And so, yeah, sit with the anger. Let people be angry with you. They're validly angry. And then do something, right? Do something. Confer amongst yourselves. And then whatever solutions you come up with, say, hey, how does this sound like? Instead of being like, we the council decide. No, we the people decide. Like, it is a privilege and an honor to serve. It is a privilege, and it can be taken away at any moment. And this discourse, it was the beginning of that trust. You might be wondering where next, what now? Like the timers, they can sometimes really cut down the conversation and the discourse that just naturally emerges. And like, I just want to welcome that. Like, the community has all the answers you need. You don't need bread for the city. You don't need anyone else. The PhDs are helpful though. The statistics are helpful though. That's my take. Thank you very much for your time and for listening.
Can I say one more thing? I just would like to know, in regards to what I said, like, how can we, like, how can y'all, like, help me move forward with this particular thought and idea that brought forward? Like, all of them. Oh, no, they remember.
We remember.
Yeah.
We have lots of notes. I mean, thank you all so much. I think a lot of really good ideas. And I just want to note, I'm not sure which cameras you're referring to. There was some press here earlier, but this entire event is streamed from start to finish with all the conversation. Absolutely. I want to ask you, and maybe Lashana, you may have thoughts on this, of the ideas of people kind of on certain corners. And you talked about, loitering or curfews. Are there other ideas to address, to get supports to people who are there, who might be in crisis or who might need other supports that aren't so heavy-handed?
That's a good one. I tried. That's a tough question. The first thing I'll say is that I think we don't have loitering laws because they've been found to be unconstitutional. And because we live in a free country, I'm not necessarily a fan of things like curfews or over-policing. I think that young people definitely need guidance and supervision. I think they need mentorships, and we need more mental health clinicians who can provide like crisis response work, and they need to be in the community and accessible to the people that need it the most. And we got to cut the red tape, and we got to be willing to pay for it because it's not free. Like, clinicians don't work for free, and they actually are kind of expensive. Social workers are needed, life coaches, mentors, and counselors. And substance abuse. I don't know how to help people.
Get them off the corner like that.
Yes.
Because most of them that's hang on the corner like that are drugs that use.
And we really need to learn how to understand how to use the systems. Like right now, I wouldn't know how to help somebody who had a substance abuse issue get treatment because it's so complicated. All these systems are just difficult to understand. Yeah, if you work in substance abuse, you probably could help me. But like, what about the average citizen just understanding how these systems work? And I also, I wanted to talk about the guaranteed basic income notion, because that is so fascinating to me. We keep talking about poverty. And then when I started learning about it, I was thinking it was a little far-fetched, like the city would never be interested in something like this, but it's not that different than TANF. It's not that different than providing folks with food stamps and things of that nature. So it's like, what if we could really provide basic guaranteed income to the people who live in the areas with the concentrated poverty? And what if we could provide things like cognitive behavior theory skills and stop the bleed skills for the people in the community who need it most? Yeah, we are doing some of this stuff for like violence interrupters and people that work in the rec centers and things of that nature, but I'm talking about taking it to the community where the problems actually exist.
And I would like to jump in to uplift the other voices you heard on the panels. They mentioned staff being paid appropriately and also staff coming from these neighborhoods. Like I do non-for-profit work, I do tenant organizing, like I can, the Department of Buildings is a mechanism I really hope to talk to you about. It's an enforcement mechanism to stop displacement. But these people, they need to come from DC and they need to be paid well. Because I work in a non-for-profit, I have to waitress. I mean, my rent, and I look like this and I don't have any children, is like 40% of my income. Like, and I look like this, right? So I just to her point, like, yeah, like we need these kind of resources, but they need to be paid for. There needs to be political willpower to put the money where our mouth is. And they need to come from the community, because that's where you
Can I
get.
say this respectfully?
Yeah.
I know that you keep saying this and we laughing about it.
Yeah.
I look like this, right? But with that being said, it's no harm, no foul to you. I'm gonna say this to my people in here. It is us that don't come together as a strong Black force to be able to implement change. We can't keep blaming another color, another race. We can't keep doing that. I have to be honest with you. My 4 Black children went to school in Georgetown. I got up every morning at 4:30 and left from Southeast to go to Northwest because I wanted them to know what diversity looks like. The world is made of diversity. It is not black, white. It is not. That's not what we're doing. We have to learn to use our tongue can be a weapon. The words that we speak out of our mouth manifest into our lives. So we have to make the sacrificial effort to not do what's convenient for us by sending our Black babies right across the street where half of the good teachers don't even want to teach over there. Let's be clear about something. Where there's not the resources there that we really, really need, the counselors, the therapists, the everything we need. It wasn't the Black people that helped me raise them children in Georgetown and give them the tutoring that they need and the counseling that they need. To be honest, it was the white people. So it's not a black-white thing, and we have to stop doing that, because these babies that are in here, and they like sponges. They hear every word that come out of our mouth. And the way that we start changing their mindsets is when we in forums like this, especially when we in our community, is how we speak and how we move. We can't just talk about it. We have to actually move with action on the change that we actually want. Sorry, y'all. When I speak like this, people that know me know I'm very passionate. I'm not angry at anybody. I promise you I'm not, and I'm not crying against it. That's why I put my lashes on, because I ain't want to cry ball.
No, you're good.
I'm just passionate.
Excuse me,
Can I-
say something about your baby?
Sure.
I would just like to give a shout out to Catholic Church, as y'all been, citizens or whatever. They are doing a great job with my granddaughter as far as her, trauma that she's going through with her parents, the loss of her parents. So I just want y'all to know that as well. Y'all have a blessed day.
Thank you. And thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
very
being
much.
here today and sharing your story.
I just want to say this last thing. I thought about the loitering as well as the curfew, because in order to engage these young men, something has to be done, and no one is really engaging them on an interpersonal level. Of course, what the sister said is relevant and important, that we need all these additional resources. We need mental health and all these things. But I know that it haven't been done yet in regards to the loitering, because they're in groups, they're in packs, right? And also the masses, like that should be taken off. They should make them take the masses off. COVID, unless you put on a mask if you got COVID, like a mask, but I'm talking about the ski masks, because they wear them now for like ops and all that type of stuff, so they won't be identified. So anyway, that's why I brought that up, because nobody else has brought it up or had the courage to bring it up, as far as them hanging in packs, and as far as something being done about that. I mean, that need to be addressed.
No, thank you so much. And I think you said it so well about courage to bring it up. This is what these conversations are for, is so we can brainstorm together and not have this just be another, government event and then you don't hear from anybody again. So I appreciate all of you raising what you did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all of the testimonies and for the follow-up testimonies from the floor. Really appreciate it. You know, the thing that's being put on us is follow through, and you know, easy to say there will be follow through, but you know, watch this space, and we're going to try.
Thank you all. Thank you so much for being here. All right, we have come to our last panel, where we will hear from Jihad.
That's me.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't have your name. Jamal Harvey. Sharice Tyler Renard. All right, so I think just Jamal. Is there anybody else in the room who would like to share or join Jamal? All right, well. Navigator.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Sorry about
Yeah, I
that.
just gave him my government name because I just like giving my government name just because it's a professional event. Hi, good afternoon. Oh, sorry. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jamal Harvey. I also go by Navigator. The reason why I came here today, the reason why I came here today because I have a lot of thoughts when it comes to crime here in Washington, D.C. And I feel like some of the root problems of crime here, one of the main root problems here in Washington, D.C. is gentrification and lack of investment in our schools, especially here in Southeast. First off, I want to start with gentrification. I start with gentrification. I think that I have seen, I've been coming to DC on my whole entire life. I'll be 30 in 2 weeks. I have seen the amount of displacement of Black people that used to live in Northwest, lives up in Uptown, up around Columbia Heights, Petworth, Shaw, and all of that. All of them have been either pushed out to here to Southeast, and either here into even further out into Charles County and Prince George's County. So that is one of the big things that's been going on here in DC when it comes to gentrification. Sorry, I'm a little emotional right now. The second thing is the lack of investment, especially when it comes to public housing. Oh, sorry, I'm so sorry.
Take your time.
Man, this is really, really hard. I'm gonna go back to gentrification. I feel like that is the biggest problem. A lot of Black people have been priced out of neighborhoods where it's leading into them to doing a lot of crime and stuff. Like, there are places, like when my grandparents bought their house in the 70s in Michigan Park, it was under $100,000. When they foreclosed, when they did the reverse mortgage on their house, and when they flipped their house back in 2018, it was worth close to $600,000. My parents could not buy that house back. Like, there's just so many things that DC city government has done and has failed to do. I also do unhoused work here in Washington, DC, which you have supported a pilot program that has caused so many evictions that happen here in the city. We've seen people getting pushed out from encampment to encampment to encampment. I have built a lot of relationship with a lot of these people, unhoused people here in the city. And again, the reason why they're doing these crimes, because they have nowhere place to go and they need money to survive and live. That's the thing that we need to do when it comes to our unhoused friends. The second thing we need to do is invest in our schools. That's the second thing we need to do. We need to provide more education funding to our public schools so they can be interested in different things like CTE programs, like STEM programs in our public schools. I went to Old Dominion University and I graduated from there in 2017. One of my professors was teaching them GIS in Virginia Beach Public Schools. We could do the same thing here in Washington, DC, where we can get people interested. We get people interested in this type of stuff instead of getting money to the goddamn police. We need to cut the police budget and invest in education and invest in affordable housing. That's what we need to invest our money in. That's what I got to say for you today. All right. Man, this
Great,
is,
thank you so much.
yeah, I just have a lot of things on my mind right now. This has really been a tough thing, just hearing everybody, because I was born here and just seeing the amount of selloutism from DC city government is really, really disturbing. Like, I don't even recognize the same city no more. Because the reason why there's so much crime happening is because people can't fucking afford, because people people cannot afford to live here. And it's really sad how much DC has sold out so many Black people here in the city. All right. Yeah. Sorry, y'all.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing. I really appreciate that perspective. And I think it goes back to this idea that it is all so related, and we need to be providing a baseline security for folks, and it all starts with housing. So thank you for the work.
So, Brooke, I have a question for you. So what type of policies are you trying to propose to address affordable housing here in Washington, DC?
So there are a number of issues that I have worked on and have been working on with affordable housing. My primary focus at the moment is with DCHA reform, because as your friend mentioned, we have over 2,000 vacant units.
Yes.
And the council has funded thousands of permanent supportive housing vouchers that are not out the door, that people have been matched to, but are still waiting for their units.
Yeah, because I heard a couple things, and one of the things that I did hear, especially from Bowser's plan when she got reinaugurated back in January, was she's trying to put 100,000 people back into the District of Columbia. Where those 100,000 people are coming from? They're not coming from Suitland. They're not coming from Waldorf. They're not coming from Camp Springs.
Yeah, I think it's a fair question. Part of the mayor's economic comeback plan is to bring 15,000 people downtown. I have a bill called the Recovery Act, which is about converting vacant office spaces to housing units, so long as we have a set aside for affordable housing units there, so that we can make sure that affordability is built in. We're trying to stick on violence here, but I really appreciate you being here, and I'm happy to talk about all the other interventions that I'm focused on afterwards.
All right.
Councilmember Fruman, do you have any questions for this panel?
I guess I'm going to just respond a little, and thank you very much for your testimony. I'll take the question on what are you going to do. One of the things that I have done is, before I was on the council, I led an organization, the Lisner Home, up in Upper Northwest on Western Avenue. And we organized to do the first Housing Production Trust Fund project in Ward 3 ever. And it will be 93 units of deeply affordable senior housing. So it's not just policy of what I'm going to do, it's things that I have done and will continue to do. I completely get the issue that you're getting at. A different thing that I proposed recently was a fund so that the city can buy commercial buildings and then do RFPs out to have more affordable housing in it. I think everybody on the council is grappling with, how do we do this? How do we address this very big issue? And I think Councilmember Pinto, myself, are trying to do tangible things. Councilmember Robert White, who's now chairing the Housing Committee, I think look to him to lead in doing very creative things. On your point on schools.
Yeah.
So I've spent a decade and a half advocating for very significant increased investment, particularly in the schools in this community. I put together a citywide organization of the education councils from every ward and advocacy groups to coalesce around an agenda around that. I ran as for council in Ward 3, explicitly on the importance of investing in all of our schools, but in particular the schools in this part of the city. I completely share what you're saying and the urgency of what you're saying, and we'll look for every possible way to try to make it a reality.
I was going to say, when it comes to housing, it's all interconnected. It is the main reason why there's so many of these crimes happening, because they don't have a good, stable home that they're living at. So that's why I say affordable housing is interconnected with crime. Because if you're only worrying about people that are coming from Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, then this shit is still going to keep happening. It's still going to keep happening because you're not investing in us, who have been here, who have dealt with the struggle. But you having some gentrifier coming from Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and New York, coming to Washington, D.C., don't know dog shit about Washington, D.C., trying to tell us what to do. You're not solving anything, and crime's going to continue to happen.
So, I mean, affordable housing and education are both public safety issues for the reasons that you say. And I hear your frustration, but I don't think you should think that we don't get it. I think we get it, and we're going to try to make a difference. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you both. Thank you. All right. Well, we have come to the end of a lot of really powerful testimony. I want to thank all of you for showing up today or for watching online and sharing your perspective. I think the thing that is most striking to me is this day and this 3-day roundtable is about gun violence prevention and reduction. And we talked very little about specifically gun violence. And I think that that is exactly to the point of our last speaker, that all of these issues are so deep rooted, and until we really provide the supports and the holistic needs of the community. I heard a lot about mental health care. I hear you loud and clear in meeting people where they are. And so we're going to continue doing that as we move forward. I want to give you a chance, Councilmember Fruman, and thank you so much for being here with us all day. If you have any other closing remarks you want to share before we close out.
You know what? I messed up and gave my closing remarks just a moment ago.
Great.
so thank you very much.
They were great. I really appreciate you being here with us all day. It really means a lot to all of us. And I know that Councilmember Trayon White wanted to get here as well. And if we kept going, I'm sure he would make it here. So I know he sends his best. There being no further witnesses or business before the committee, we're about to adjourn, but I want to remind those who are following along that we're having the third session of this gun violence prevention and reduction roundtable on Monday with government witnesses and other national experts. We're going to be joined in person by the Deputy Mayor, the Chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, the District of Columbia Attorney General, the U.S. Attorney for the District, directors of the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, the Office of Gun Violence Prevention, and other agency heads. And we will receive testimony from some other national experts, as I mentioned. I plan to put the concerns, critiques, and recommendations that were raised today to our government partners so that this conversation today can really drive what our resolutions look like on Monday and as we move forward. I know this is a complicated issue in part because it does touch really all of the inequities that we continue to see in our city. This is not going to be solved overnight. I do not have errors about this that we can, but I believe that we can make a difference here, and I'm going to try every day to do that in partnership with you all. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to my amazing team who put this together for this 3-day event. Really appreciate you all. It's a big effort, big lift. Thank you. Thank you so much.